Who did that? Y'all knew better than that. I am. Okay. I'm sitting down here tonight. I mean today.
Oh, well, then if we can sit wherever we want. Can I sit in the middle for a change?
You want to?
Edwin?
Oh, that's his
Oh,
Jennifer
no.
Hunt. Oh.
You want to switch spots?
Yeah, we gotta switch now.
Well, let me sit. I guess I go here.
Yeah.
You're going to go to your...
Unless you want to take my seat.
No.
Was there one there that
Let me
can
move
do?
this.
No, it's okay.
Who put us in order?
It just seems like whenever I do these things, I end up having to look up random stuff.
She was gonna sit here, but they have the name by in front of us.
I'm right on the leg.
With my expensive bottle of water today.
I'll take shit.
You got mints, you got candy. Stay focused. Which one is yours and which one?
No, none of yours.
Oh, you. Oh, I was about to take it too. Is this yours?
This is all my stuff.
I tried it.
So you're getting moved, girl.
I see.
The water thing.
But did you bring candy then?
We are tough love.
Why is the candy way over there? Candy.
Keep it away.
Oh, yes, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Oh, I forgot my screen cleaner. That's annoying.
And how's your morning? Good deal.
As soon as it's charged, I will move this
Oh,
file.
you're fine.
It's all good.
I've got...
No, he'll be on the back, so if you guys need.
Right. That's what we need.
But you know what?
No, you said no.
I'll take one of these just in case.
It needs to be like exact. It's been about
I have a super
20 years
cute screen
traveling.
cleaner that's like nice and travel thing friendly, and I forgot it. Because it has like the spray in it, and I wiped it.
Years ago that said, first nights of many places of fight or flight, your body's fight or flight, so you will sleep great.
Just take the whole thing. Wow, because I mean, you're here for 3 days. First night was good. Second night, so yeah. But actually, Friday night, I went down, and the thing was at 6 a.m. Just give me a sign. Usually, I'm restless. But how about you? Do what?
Did you get another drink last night, or did you go right to bed?
We sat down there.
Or you like, you doesn't matter what, if you're in another game,
No, I
it
went
doesn't work.
to my bed, but I was like, I don't know, normally at 10:30
Shit, I wish I would've had that, cause I like my week.
oh look, Modern Family's on TV, I haven't seen that in
Right.
I stayed up till midnight watching TV.
Oh, wow, yeah. I didn't make it that long.
Didn't even look at this.
I didn't either. I think
Josh, so
Your
like
friend?
a person, he pulls me to bed.
I'll just fall asleep in the chair.
Well, Josh texted me at 10:20, he goes, I'm about to start a movie, I'm like, and he goes, you're right, I should have. But he texted him in the middle there.
Typically, I need. I can talk from here, but either way, the other mic, hey Larry, come forward. So these mics are hot, and then the only other one is up there? Okay.
Yeah. It's like graph paper or something.
yeah, like.
It's the football player.
You may want to ruffle the candy if you guys.
I knew you were like, no.
All right, friends.
Larry, you ready? We're getting ready to go live.
We're going live, and your mic is hot. Everybody, repeating that. Your mic is hot. All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today, and also thank you to all of the department heads and everybody for getting your presentations ready. I know that you put a lot of hard work in, and we really appreciate that. I also want to thank Anthony and Jackie and Catherine and Larry and Bobby for getting us all set up here. We kind of put a, wrench in the plan when we said let's go away, let's make a fresh start, and so they went to work and got us together, and we appreciate that as well. We have a super long agenda today, so I don't want to talk for very long, but we will do something fun. some fun things hopefully together as well to get to know each other. Chief Grant.
That's Latoya's job. The timer's her job.
And I think I can speak for all people on the board when I say that we are grateful for all of y'all and we appreciate you and we believe that we are a team and a family and we want to work together and have trust together and that our goals that we're setting today are going to be goals that we're all going to work together to achieve. And we are happy about that and excited about that and here to do the hard work with you. So that's all.
All right.
You're up, Anthony.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Mayor did all the thank yous. I will say again, everything that we're doing today is related to these folks. If I was sitting up here all this way, so all the staff put all this together. All I had to do was look at it and really didn't make a whole lot of changes. So great staff to put this together. And again, thank you for Catherine and Bobby and Jackie and Larry and everybody else that was involved in setting this up. Not Anthony, because it probably messed up. And a few housekeeping things. We will be here tomorrow morning. We'll be here all day today and most of the day tomorrow. Bathrooms, if you didn't see them, in that back corner over there. Breakfast will be here in the mornings, and lunch and dinner today will be back at the main.
Lunch is here.
Oh, the lunch is here now?
Lunch is here.
Okay.
Jamie, that lady over there, we need to thank the Franklin staff also. Jamie says lunch is here.
Okay, perfect. See there, I'm already off. So, lunch is here. Dinner will be at the Manor House, which is the main building as you come in. So, and if you have any issues with rooms or things like that, I doubt you will. But if you do, let Catherine know, and I'm sure she can probably find the right person to get you squared away. But I think there'll be snacks and drinks, and there'll probably be some in here, but get up and go and move around as you see fit. The mics are very sensitive, so, obviously, if I get here crumpling paper and everything, it's probably gonna pick it up. But just like streaming anywhere else, we will, Larry will let us know when it's live, when it goes out, all those good things, but we'll get started. And again, thanks everyone for being here, and it's gonna be nonstop. So I don't know how many slides, probably 250, 300 slides, and all this stuff will be posted online. We're streaming, the public can see everything. They'll be able to see all the slide presentations, everything. So whatever you're getting, they're getting. So we'll get started. I think the first thing we got is goals. And I didn't want to spend a lot of time reading through every one of these goals. And if you recall at a previous board meeting, we talked about goals. You gave your edits back. What you have here, and I think Jackie sent this out maybe a couple days ago, the revised version. All this is taking and cleaning up what we had before with all the strike through lines, and me and Jackie taking a stab at trying to make some modifications of what we heard. And I will tell you, the line up top, what I'd say the vision line, it's just some wording I put together. Please change it. Feel free to help me out there. I was trying to get at, obviously some of the equity, I think statements and comments that I've heard. So please edit as you see fit. If you want to tell me today, hey, I want these changes, that's great. What I would say, instead of spending a lot of time on it, take another look at it. Send us your comments, send Jackie your comments. We'll tweak it again, and then we'll bring it back to the board, hopefully adopt it maybe the next couple meetings. But if we're way off base, please tell us. These are your goals. We're going to take those goals and continue to do our work. I think we're getting very close. We're going to do a lot of things not even on these goals. For instance, we listed some grants there. We're going to go after every grant we can think of. So I couldn't list all the grants we may go after. Some of them I don't even know they're out there yet. So don't think that we're not going to be doing. We're going to do a million things outside of these. You'll see so many slides today that will blow this page, out of the room. So I don't want to read through them. We'll let you take a peek at them, send us your comments, and we'll get it right. And I promise you, we will not stick. We're going to try to stick to this. But if I told you we're going to not run over, some are going to be less, some are going to be more. It's just really more of a time box on the agenda. Bobby or Larry, would you just switch to the agenda if you have it up? So if you see these time slots, I'm not going to, go say, Chief, stop, you're not done, move on. We're gonna allow you to ask all the questions you can, so ask away anytime. It's, hey, Chief, I got this question, or Kevin or whatever, just ask away. That's what we're here for. We want to get all your answers. And, but we will get it back on track if we get too far out of line, because it is gonna be crunch. And, so bear with us, and, staff here is gonna do an excellent job. Ask any questions you want. So with that, unless you have any questions, we will dive right into it and go. Jackie's, probably got some, good feedback over here for me.
The first thing I would say is it's not necessarily obvious what's not on the agenda. You're gonna hear from the directors for the next 2 days. The one person you will not hear from is Fire Chief Tatoli. Invariably, wherever we do this, coordinating this number of schedules is just not always possible. There's always somebody who doesn't make it. So Chief Tatoli is scheduled to present at the first meeting, at the second meeting in February. Your next meeting, Chief Tatoli will come and talk to you, so he's not on the agenda. The first person that we have on today's agenda, can we get a round of applause for somebody brave enough to go first, who celebrated his 20th anniversary at the town last month? I've had to go first, Brian. It's not an enviable task. Thank you. So, Brian has been here 20 years. Of course, Brian was the assistant planning director. He took over when Jack Semino retired, effective November 1st. He's got with him Brad Priest, the assistant director, planning department. So, I hope everybody understands what planning does, but for the streaming audience, a layperson's version of planning is, it's not Brian Richards, it's not Brian Richards and Anthony, it's not even the town board who sits in a smoky room and decides what we want in what location. We have a 2040 plan. We have lots of public meetings that come together and create our 2040 plan and the land development code. So planning is about what do we want in what spots in town, and zoning is about are people doing things according to our rules. So planning, that's a fair synopsis of what planning and zoning is about. You will get more out of the next 2 days if you make this conversational, so by all means, stop Brian as he goes through first some statistics about population and permitting and COs, and then he'll dive into what the 2040 plan and the downtown plan and ideally the mobility plan will tell us we want in what spot. Brian.
And one thing, Brian, before you get started, if you think about it, mute your phones and iWatches and iPads and everything else if you think about it. But get up freely to go do what you need to do. I'm not going to chain you down to the chair. And if you need, even though we may have a break on here, if you say, okay, we've had 2 hours of Anthony talking, let's tap out and take a break, just let me know. It's very open here. Go for it, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And just to add to that, we've all done this long enough. These tend to work better when we are interactive with one another. You might think of a question, and if you don't jot it down or don't ask, raise your hand, something, because if we change topics, you don't want to go too far off before you come back to something. So feel free to stop, ask questions. We're here. As everybody said, Brad's handing out some of the latest maps, those of the zoning and development maps, as well as the STIP map that shows all the approved CRTPO road improvement projects. When that map first came out, it started just over about $500 million. If you notice now, I think the last was $1.2 billion. So costs keep going up. So don't be afraid to make decisions, because if you don't, it's going to cost more to do it later. So as we said, we've got some statistics. These are our growth statistics, our population data that we use. One of our department heads has this chart, so we are consistent using the same numbers now, which is great. We haven't done that in the past. You can see how much we've grown since 1990. We're just over 3,000 folks, and coming up this summer, we're going to be about 68,000 people here in town. I anticipate we'll continue to grow at that 2 to 3% rate for the next several years, which will put us in the year 2030 at approximately 86,000 people, and then 2040 just over 100,000 people, depending on many different factors, the economy, choices you guys make as a board. The Charlotte region is going to continue to grow. It's a great place to live. That's why we're all here. So we don't anticipate these numbers to, deflect too much from what we see here. As you can see where we ranked in the state, last year we were 50. I'm not sure how Apex jumped us by so much this last time. I'm gonna guess there was a large annexation at some point, but I have to check that out. So here we are at number 16, 63,000. This was the last state census. Every summer in July, the state comes back and gives us our official population. So every summer we kind of reset our baseline. And then of course every 10 years we have the national census. And very interesting if you go back and look, statistically we lost people, but we all know that's not true. But you know, when it's time to do the next census, let's encourage everybody to go put your name in the, you know, take care of everything and put your name in there. That way we get counted, and we do get money based on population. So it's very important for people.
And Brian, you did say that the population numbers run typically a year behind, so.
Yeah, so they're about 1 year behind.
So you may see 22, it's because officially hadn't got the certified 23 numbers.
Yeah, for 23, we'll get our numbers in July of 24. So it's 1 year behind. So there we are. All right, here's the one everybody likes to see. How many houses are we building every year? Well, last year we built just under 300 houses, and that dipped primarily because of sewer capacity. If you guys are aware, there was an issue over at the Wasatch plant, and they had to temporarily pause allowances for new development. So we saw everybody pumping the brake. So that was the main reason that you see that dip. Other things that did contribute to that was the lack of available lots. It does take time to clear land, develop land, put in infrastructure, get those lots ready for sale. We've at such a rapid pace over the last 5 years, couldn't get the land ready to go fast enough. So kind of helped with the sewer delay to help some folks get caught up. So I anticipate we'll see a slight increase this year, if not about the same number. We still have having some folks with some delays, even if there's lots available for new homes. Also, you can see the slowing of the economy. Everybody hears about that. Not to say that Charlotte's not affected by that, but we just tend not to be affected as much. Kind of talked to us, I thought it was kind of a little engine that could. We never grow as fast as everybody else, but we never stop. So we're just kind of chugging right along that 3 to 5% every couple of years. And so it's a great thing. And another thing that may have contributed to this is the interest rates, everybody going up when it's a little bit harder to get. So nothing to be shocked about. It was all anticipated this was going to happen, and it kind of played out that way. And with a lower number of single-family homes being built, you obviously have a lower number of certificates of occupancy. And this is the number that we track when we track new households. So when a house gets that CO, we assume it's been sold and a family's moving in. Roughly, single-family homes in Huntersville, about 2.5 people per home is a good statistic that we follow. And this is the most impressive number I've seen in a long time. This is our commercial growth. So this is non-residential growth. I remember when we first started here, we had 2 large warehouses in town. Right now, I have to have, my team is putting together a map and a chart because we forgot how many there are. So we'll now, Brad, what do we have to over 8 million square feet?
Around that about.
Yeah, so when we first started here, it was about 500,000 square feet with really the Reynolds plant that's up on 73. And right now we have over 8 million square feet of warehouse either permitted, existing, or in construction. So we've got a lot more than we ever did before. And that's why you see that large number this year. I mean, $300 million of non-residential construction. That's a lot. You guys, we live it, we see it, and there it is in a number. Pretty impressive. And here's our boundaries. Right now, I can't even read it on my little chart. So I'll sneak over here. Everything in yellow is our corporate boundaries, and everything in green is TJ. We had 3 annexations last year. That was the Camden subdivision, the Hill subdivision, and the Brownlee subdivision. That was about 130 acres we took into the town limits. This year, we're going to anticipate about 4 to 6 more annexations. Pretty simple procedure for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to follow up with that. But our staff, it'll be a one night. We'll have the public hearing for it and we'll ask for action that same night. And then it'll go into effect the next morning. Pretty straightforward. This is our zoning map. You can see all the different colors. Just to give you a little history as to why our zones are done the way they are, we have a concentric ring theory. Basically, we're trying to keep most of our density along the I-77, 115, 21 corridors. And as you go out east and west, those densities get lower and lower. So when you get out on the left and right side, you see that green area, that's our rural zone. Typically, you're gonna see low-intensity, single-family homes, less than 1 unit per acre, 45% open space. You'll see some churches, you'll see some schools, still see some farms. As you come into the next rung, that brown area, that's called our transitional zone, that allows for up to 1.5 units per acre, with 40% open space. Again, you'll still see mainly single-family homes. You'll see some churches and schools as well. And then as you get inside, you'll see the grays, the pinks, the purples. Those are our more intense zones. You've got the highway commercial special purpose. And that bright yellow, that's the neighborhood residential, where we actually have no density limits in there, but we do have some other factors that limit growth, as percent attached units, those types of things. So any major subdivision in that zone, we don't allow more than 30% attached units. So if you got 100 houses, you could have 30 townhomes, you could have 30 apartment units, and then 70 single-family homes. But we keep growing, and then each year, speaking of growing, we had 11 rezonings filed last year. We've heard we'll be about the same this year. Haven't talked to too many folks who are ready, but to file immediately. But I think towards later this year, we'll have some more filed. So we'll probably have about 10 to 12 this year. And some of those do take over. Won't have action taken on until the following year. So we won't have 11 actions this year, but pretty close to it. And then here's our zoning statistics. As you can see, we're still approximately 80% zone residential. That's primarily where we get our tax base from. So you see the general residential, which is basically a holdover category from when we took over zoning from the county. Those were, you would hear things like R3, R4. Those are old things. We kind of lump those all in together. So you've got Moorstone, some of your Winfield, Cedarfield, those were all developed under older codes. And so all those get zoned general residential. And then we have the neighborhood residential, what we just talked about. Rural, still our largest zoning category. It's about 25% of our area. One thing I do want to point out, if you look at town center, it's like less than 1% of our land mass. So when we start talking about downtown and what we want to do, think about this. You're talking 1% of our area. It's okay for 1% of our area to be different. It should be different. So let's go ahead and let's make that great. Let's focus on that. And we can set some goals and some things that we can do to make that 1% of our land great. Everybody, I think people are clamoring for the downtown. You see it. You see, how successful 760's been. Because that came in, now Crafty Beer Guys has even had a pickup in business. Our restaurants have picked up. And we're starting to see some interest. We've got, obviously, the town center, Underhill Town Center project going on next door. A lot of excitement. Just met with the developer yesterday about the number of folks he's wanting to come in for his the non-residential portion about it. It's great. So we're talking to them about some potential other projects in town. So you get some excitement going. We've got some energy. It's a good time to be here. I've always told folks that we have the problems you want to have. People want to be here. That's a great thing. When that'll lead to parking, that's another problem. We'll talk about that later. So then we have our approved development map. This is where we keep categories of all of our major developments. Brad handed this out to you guys. You can see all the subdivisions that we have. And underneath that, they'll tell you typically what types of units are in there and how many of each. Last year, we had 7 major subdivisions approved and 3 farmhouse clusters. So we keep continuing to grow. Speaking of growth, we'll sit here for a little bit and I'm sure you guys may have some questions. Currently, we have 32 active subdivisions. That means they are pushing dirt on 32 sites. That means anywhere from, they're just taking the trees off last week to, I know for me down at the Sherrill subdivision, which is part of Vermillion, they're building the last home. So that's actively, as of this morning, 32 active subdivisions. So a lot going on. We have 17 that are planned. That means they've been either approved previously by quasi-judicial decisions or by staff, but they have not gone out and pushed dirt yet. So we got a lot going on. And then the variation, people always ask, how many houses do we have approved that aren't built yet? Well, this number was taken in the middle of December last year because we switched systems with Mecklenburg County. So we had to take it back to the middle of the month. And at that time, there were just over 2,400 single-family homes that were approved but not yet built. It's just under 400 townhomes. And then the big one that folks like to talk about is the apartments. It says 3,500. I do want to put a little asterisk on that. A lot of that is part of Brighton. Brighton had a lot of allowances that allowed it to have a lot of intensity if and when a train were to come up on the red line. We know where that discussion's going right now. It's you hear a lot of different things, but Bright has developed quite a bit. When that was originally approved back in 2006, they had envisioned the train coming in relatively soon to that time. Obviously, with the dips in the economy and different things, that hasn't come to fruition yet. So they're building at a much lower intensity rate than they could have, but those units are still available for them, so we have to account for this. There's probably, don't quote me on it, but give or take 1,000 units in there that might be on paper, that never come to fruition. So that's what we have there. What we're gonna try to do is, as we continue to move forward, every quarter give you guys an update on that list. That's something that we're gonna do as a staff, so we're working on a good way for us to get the permit numbers out of the county, attributed to which developments they are coming from, and then, like I said, every quarter, just give you guys a quick blurb and update. Here's what we've got in the queue, so everybody knows. Speaking of queue, we were busy last year. So if you look at the previous 2 years, we had reviewed, we had 300 projects sent in the year 2021, then last year 227. Last year we had 476. I knew my team was getting burnt out, but until we went back and counted why, this is it. I mean, we doubled our productivity last year. You see the highest number in there is UC Plats. That's when you realize things are coming to fruition. People are out there making map changes. People are recording lots. People are recording easements for buildings, those types of things. That is where you see how much action's going on in town. This is it. So we were really, really busy. And I'm gonna go to my next slide.
Brian, before you get off
Sure.
that one, that far right column heading's a little hard to read. Will you just confirm for us what that says? I'm assuming that's 23 through December 4th, but.
It is, yeah, I'm sorry, that is through December, so it's 11 months. Again, because we had to, cut that short because the transition changed between the different review systems from the county. Appreciate that, Jackie. But that's a lot of work. We have 15 people on my team, and I can tell you right now, every single one of them worked a lot last year. A lot of late nights between, some of us, and some weekends, but we got it all done. And I want to say this too, I think we had fewer complaints last year than we've had in a long time too. I just want to give kudos to those guys, and shout out to Steven and his team as well. I can't say enough about how hard those guys worked and did just a great job representing the town, and just doing an awesome job. The next slide is the approved projects. So sometimes at these approved projects, you'll see that number's down to 151. That 151 will have multiple parts. That's why there's 500 or 476 on the previous number. This one project in here may have multiple parts that were on the previous slide. But we approved 151 separate projects last year. So that just tells you that's one every other day. So there's a lot of things going on here. And like I said, which is a great place to be. Does anybody have any questions? This is the end of the numbers, the boring stuff. But does anybody have any questions about this stuff or comments? Yes, sir.
One question. With the 4 to 6 annexations this year, estimated how many homes?
That's a great question. And I almost looked that up this morning. One's an industrial park. I do know that, but and a couple are small subdivisions. But I'll get that to you. All right. The answer, how many homes? 0 today. They will be built in the future, but we'll get you that.
Cool.
All right. Yes.
So I noticed the large subdivision. That seems like a big jump.
It is. So, Steve, do you remember the difference between a large and small subdivision? There's a lot count and numerical value that splits them up. So a lot of minor subdivisions, if I just have my grandmother's farm and I want to make 3 lots, that goes into a small category. Once it gets over 5 or 6, it becomes a large subdivision. There's a number of acres, there's a lot of different factors in there. So that's not, I'm building 35 Winfields. That's, I've got, my family had 15, 20 acres, and I've got 6 lots out of it. That may kick me into that large category. So there's a lot of that activity going on as well. So I'm gonna let you know.
I think I'm good. Yeah.
Good?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, here we are. This is what everybody likes to talk about, the 2040 plan. And there's our goal, to become the most livable community and the rest of the staff, things that we've heard around town that we're starting to do. That people want to see more greenways, they want to see more parks. Michael and his team are delivering those things right now. He'll tell you all kinds of statistics about what's coming up, but I can tell you right now, it's a good time to be here, and it's good to see the town reinvesting in itself and putting in some needed infrastructure and some needed recreational facilities. So here's our 2040 long-range plan. This is the map that we use. This tells us, what types of areas when folks come in for a rezoning. How does my project fit into this puzzle? Is this an appropriate use? We could talk about the lagoon from last year. We could not, but for us it was pretty easy. We had that project proposed, and really easy. We opened up our maps. All right, how does this interesting project fit into our guide? From a planning perspective, we looked at it from a lot of different things. There were some really neat things about that project. There were also some things that were going to be challenges. But you take that and you weigh it against what's adopted for the town. This is our guidebook, right? As you can see, again, sticking to that same theory that reflects the zoning map, keeping most of our densities in that I-77, 21, 115 corridors. As we go out to either side, lower densities. You'll see these brown areas. Those are mixed-use nodes and activity centers, little pockets of intensification. So maybe I don't have to go all the way into Rosedale. If I live out at Skybrook to go to the grocery store, I can go down the street, pick up some bread, or go to the insurance office, or go to my doctor. Different things. So you'll see those activity centers, those mixed-use nodes, where you'll have your higher intensities and your more frequent shopping activities, work, offices, those types of things. So that's what happens in those areas.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
Might be good to just delineate between the mixed-use centers and the activity centers.
Sure. In layman's terms, it's intensification. A mixed-use center is going to have more of what's in an activity center, and then the activity centers are more smaller day-to-day trips. In the mixed-use centers, you'll see your Burkdales, you'll see your North Crosses, you'll see Town 1 that's going to come down on Hembright Road. That's going to be a mixed-use center. Downtown, as we try to continue to develop and intensify downtown a little bit, that's identified as a mixed-use center. And again, we talked about Town 1 down at Hembright, and then to the east, Brighton. So you'll have it's really just a level of intensification. The activity centers really typically limit your non-residential to 40 to 50,000 square feet total, and in the mixed use, it just goes up from there. There's not a cap, but that's the main delineation between the two. I want to go on to highlight some of the plans that were going on, and I cannot read this from here. Can I move the mic right now? Yeah. Come around and read.
Where are you going?
Thank you.
Oh.
Are we gonna be able to do this or no?
Can you blow it up, Bobby, like the screen it off? Or is that, you got it on a PowerPoint? And while they're getting ready, Mayor Moore, I'm getting a little bit of feedback from the public on, so we're tweaking some of the mics because your mics are so hot and picks up everything, so we're working to turn yours down a little bit while the speaker's speaking, so trying to make it best as possible.
Are they getting like the tapping?
Yeah, hearing some of the tapping and all that,
Okay, I'll try better.
so no whispering now.
Would it help if we move it a little further away from us?
They're just so sensitive, and we want to make sure we pick up everything. So Larry's turning those down a little bit.
Public.
Yeah, yes.
We're turning those down, and maybe turning that up is probably the
Should we
simplest way.
push these back a little bit?
Yeah, you can push them back, Larry. It'll be fine, right? Don't. They're just so sensitive, but there's pluses and minuses to that.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm Bob Barker now. All right, so here, it's a little update. This is our action plan from the 2040 plan. And I've gone and highlighted just some of the projects and things that we're working on. It's a shame this was first on the list because this is my last item I want to talk about in this. So we're going to come back to this one in yellow. It's prepare and update small area plans. Again, I'll come back to that in a minute. And that's upcoming. In green are things that are in process or completed. Working on updating the Huntersville Design Guidebook. We're hiring an intern to come in and evaluate our existing design guidebook, which was done by interns a number of years ago. So Brad and David are going to be working on that. Evaluate and strengthen incentives for encouraging achievements of higher design standards. You'll see we're going to propose a text amendment first quarter that will help with that, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. And then encourage a diversity of housing options. Again, that's something that's upcoming. We'll talk about that in the upcoming text amendment. We've got in process conduct a study of future government offices. Well, we all know, which you guys took some action towards that on Monday night for the town hall, and of course we are always evaluating our other facilities. Establish a street and sidewalk requirement for new development. As part of our mobility plan, we're going to look at upgrading all of our sidewalks along thoroughfares from 5 feet or 5 and 7 feet to 10 feet for the side path. That was already adopted in the sideway and greenway plan from a couple of years ago. Michael's working on this one, Park and Rec, for connecting Torrance Creek Greenway to Holbrook Park through downtown. We're very excited for that next leg to come over when they widen 21 to get the tunnel under there and get the existing tunnel under I-77 open and active. I don't know if anybody's been over to park behind Publix lately, but that's being very well used, and the greenway's coming along fantastic. They don't want to steer Michael's thunder, so we'll move on from that one. And then again, things that we're working on constantly, supporting public art. The Christmas time, they have the nice art that's been installed in the downtown Greenway show. That's been fantastic. Update the downtown small area plans. Of course, we adopted that last year, the downtown plan. And this year, we're going to look at starting implementing some of those things, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Enhance open space designs. One thing that we do as a staff is always evaluate urban open space designs and criteria as we travel throughout the country and around the world, as we read magazines, as we just talk to other planners. If someone's got a better idea than us, why not adopt it? Give folks choices. I mean, I'm a big believer of putting as many tools in the toolbox as you can. If you do that, that will truly ensure and future-proof Huntersville. It'll make us a great place. We only have 5 choices. You're going to get the same 5 choices. It's great to have a lot of different choices and give folks some creative ability and freedoms to design different things. Some things, were great on paper, and when you put it out in the real world, it just doesn't work. For whatever reason. And if that doesn't work, then let's find out why and change it if we need to, or get rid of it. If it's not a good tool, why have it? And the next one is something that I want to start looking at this year, and I'll talk about that, is plant trees and inventory and manage an urban forestry canopy, and especially in downtown. We have a tree fund that's got a decent amount of money in it, and I'd like to propose that we look at a tree planting program for downtown that maybe, we have no parameters, this is just an idea we've talked about. Perhaps we have a plan that we pay for the trees out of this tree bank, and then folks just maintain those trees. So that's something we want to put together. I haven't talked to Emily or Anthony much about it, just an idea. But as we went through and finished up the Main Street project, we did have to take out a number of trees, but what a great idea if we can go back and we could help those folks who want trees in their front yards to go back and let's plant them. They have to take care of them, but we've got some money, so let's go ahead and look at doing something like that. We did sign a contract last year with a tree company who unfortunately has had some staffing changes, so we've had to cancel that contract. So we're going back out to bid. So we're finding some other folks to help us do a tree inventory of downtown and teach us some new planting techniques and those types of things. So that's gotten delayed. You'll see that in the next slide that was on pause. The next one is encourage low impact development. Again, getting back to those tools, right now we have more restrictive watershed requirements and low impact development requirements than our neighbors. They have more tools to use than we do. So I want to sit down with Stephen and his team and Rusty Rizal down at the county to see what can we do to give us those same tools that the other folks have, or more tools. If we're going to be more restrictive, and for good reason, to protect the environment, but let's at least afford those folks the ability to use other devices and things that can achieve the same goals that we have, but just give them other options than the same 3 or 4 that we keep seeing come up over and over.
And what is low impact? What does that mean, and what is that?
Basically, you have to treat the site as if it was never developed. So if it rains today, and there's a whole bunch of, we won't get into too many scientific things, but the pollutants that would naturally come off your land, it needs to act the same before and after it's been developed. So that's low impact design and low impact development. So if rain comes off at 5 feet per second with just being a forest, after you put your homes in there, it needs to come off at 5 feet per second afterwards. And it needs to be treated the same way as if the absorption rate is the same if it was just grass and or farm as before and after. And LID is one of these theories and techniques, and then your BMPs, best management practices, those are the actual tools that are implemented. We can go way down this rabbit hole stuff, but that's it in a nutshell. So basically treating the earth, as it was before it was actually developed. Again, talking about the fire department, you guys have already taken action on that, so that's really in progress or done, and we're continuing to hire those folks, and Chief DeTolik will speak to you guys later this year. Coordinate with CMS in local charter schools on expansion of school capacity. We have 3 active school projects right now. 3, yeah. We have 1 charter, 1 private, and we're working with CMS on the redevelopment of North, and having a couple, we'll start to have talks about the Huntersville Elementary replacement probably towards the end of this year, I'm thinking. So yeah, we're constantly working with our schools and our neighbors to implement, get those guys online and give our children the best choices that they can have. Mobility plan, we're wrapping that up right now. We have our draft in-house, where our team's back in town hall today. We're evaluating that, got a meeting with the consultant on Monday to get that draft wrapped up, and we'll talk about that in just here a few moments from now. And then coordinate the department, the implementation of the bicycle plan. We're actually gonna kind of take the bicycle plan and wrap it up into the mobility plan, but the goal for the mobility plan is to integrate all these different plans together into one clearinghouse. So if we change things, we only have to change 1 document and not change 5 documents. So that made a lot of sense. Of course, we talked about, we're talking about develop a safety improvement study. We had gone out for a grant last year, did not get that, so we've had to pump the brake on that. We will reapply for that same grant later this year. There's Safe Routes to School, and there's a couple other different ones. But basically, if we get this grant, it gives us, we have to create a plan that allows us to then go get other grants. So once we got good feedback from the committee that reviewed it, unfortunately we didn't win it this time, but they gave us some tips, so that should help us get over the line later this year, and then that will lead to other grant applications in the future. Evaluate proposed NCDOT projects for consistency. That's all tied back into the mobility plan, and we'll show you some stuff on that in just a second. And then let's see, the CIP. That's what we're here for today and tomorrow. So Stephen has an exhaustive list of plans that will be spread out over many hours, and we'll have lots of fun with that. All right, here's my first one, the small area plan. But first of all, has anybody had questions about this list before? All right, the glazing's begun. All right, so here, this is 2 things I want you to take away from this map. Outside of the downtown master plan that was adopted last year, look at the dates of these things. They're old, okay? It's not to say that the information is not still relevant. People will say our zoning ordinance is old, it's 30 years old. I will say this, to that I will say this. It was so far cutting edge 30 years ago, we're still on the front line. People are still studying us. Congress for New Urbanism had their retreat here in Charlotte. Where did they go? They went to Birkdale. They sold out that tour for Birkdale. Birkdale's constantly getting done. People don't realize that Rosedale's constantly being studied. The old power centers like you see at North Cross are done, they're dead, they're going Derwent, all over the place. When you have a form-based code like we do, places like Birkdale and Rosedale, they have an extra bit of life. A typical power center is 15 to 20 years tops. We're getting a lot of extra life out of Target because there's no competition, so they're not forced to redevelop that. But look at Birkdale. They came in last year. They've made some attempts to rezone. We'll see what happens next. But they've gone through that main area and they've done things that were allowed by right. They've reinvigorated. They've reinvested. We see new tenants at Rosedale constantly. If someone leaves, it's not long before someone moves in. Same thing with Publix next door. Those types of developments in that from the form-based codes live well, they redevelop well. You create public infrastructure with public streets. I don't have to go buy an entire shopping center to put in one new thing. I can buy a corner and redevelop just that corner. So that theory the town adopted 30 years ago is going to lead us well into the next century. So these things, although they have some age on them, it's okay. The theories behind them are well thought out. I do want you to point out is look at all the area that's in white. Those are areas that have never been studied for a small area plan. Okay? So we've come along as a department and thought, you know what? How can we try to kill two birds with one stone and spend wise with our money? We broke the town up into quadrants. And we kind of know where development is going and has gone. So one thing I would like to do is these quadrant plans, as opposed to just small area plans, and study these things in depth. Take the existing information in these quadrants and from the existing small area plans that are in there, update those, and then fill in those gaps. Some of those gaps are naturally going to be filled in. Up northeast, obviously Northstone's there, they're taking a big thing. You're not going to come in by Northstone and redevelop it. So you can come in smartly and efficiently, study the 115 corridor, study these different corridors through here, come up with good future land uses that are in different places. Do we need to protect farms, turn them into parks? I don't know. That's part of this process. But what I'd like to do is break the town up into 4 quadrants, get them on a rotation like we do for the for the town, for the 2040 plan, we do the 2050. Update these things every so often. Fill in those gaps. I would propose we would start with the northeast. That's where the most pressure is. The next study would be the southeast, then northwest and southwest. So we'll talk more about that as we go along, and Anthony and I can sit down and come up with a plan, get some proposals, and figure out how we'll fund those. But that's, you see it, they're old, but they're still relevant. But it's something we do need to address now that we've got the 2040 plan, we've got the downtown plan. Let's start planning for the future. We've got David Pete in place to be our long-range planner, and he's going to help lead this charge. Does anybody have any questions on this? All right, downtown plan, here we are. Got a lot of activity, got a lot of interest. We received a grant. Bobby helped us with this. We're going to start studying regional stormwater. What that will do is that will take, once we hopefully get some ideas and some solutions from that, and we can enact different things that will help small businesses develop more quickly. It's very expensive to treat stormwater on site. Downtown, smaller parcels, less available land to treat stormwater on site. That drives costs up. If we can come up with some good regional solutions, folks can buy into those things, lowers the cost of entry for someone, lowers a lot of barriers, increases the ability to redevelop downtown. Utilize the Arborist project. Again, that's on hold right now as we go out and research for a new contractor. Brad's going to help us with that. Coordinate with the engineering department. We've got downtown. It's 1% of our land. Okay, should we treat downtown different than we treat the rest of the city? You've got, we all said we visit Burgdale, we visit Rosedale. If you notice, those are designed differently. If you go out to North Cross to different areas, you're going to have different design standards. And by design standards, I mean, what is the proper width for a driveway? What is the proper turning radius for something? Do I need turn lanes? Do I need that? We don't have separate standards for downtown. Part of the 2040 plan, part of the downtown plan is we want these areas to be different. We want it to be walkable, pedestrian friendly. So let's go make that happen. What's that going to take? Different design standards. So we'll have to work with Stephen and his team, and we'll come up with some ideas for that. Obviously, continue to work with our friends at DOT and CATS and CMS to implement these things. Again, as they get closer to replacing Huntersville Elementary School, that's going to be a big one. There's going to be a lot of decisions that have to be made around that. All right, mobility plan. Or does anybody have questions on downtown before we move? Nothing. All right, well, we're humming right along.
You stumped them.
I know. I'm waiting for some questions here. Mobility plan. This came from the 2040 plan, but I also do want to give a shout out to Bill Cox because he had an idea about this when I first came to work 20 years ago. Like a road. We're finally doing it today. So, and so again, this the idea, where did it come from? It was started in the 2040 plan and some other ideas to basically congregate all these different plans. We've got bikeway plans, we've got greenway plans, we've got CRTPO has their highway plans, we've got local roads, sidewalk plans. Well, if I'm developing something, I need an answer. I have to go to 5 or 6 different books that may give me 5 or 6 different answers that conflict with each other. So let's put it all together in one clearinghouse. So we had the vision. It's to create, I'm not gonna read it to everybody, we can all read. But we had the vision to put this together, and it's really for all of our citizens and all of our users to have one comprehensive clearinghouse and to concatenate all these ideas into one spot. The biggest thing that is gonna come out for us is an online GIS database. Basically, I'll show you a picture of how that's gonna work in just a second. You see in the upper left corner, those are all of our major thoroughfares in town. Most of those are DOT roads. Each of those have different design standards and different uses. So they're context-sensitive designs. You don't build a highway that no one's gonna be on. So you build it for the use that it's there for. So we've got boulevards, thoroughfares, and minor thoroughfares. This is an example of the different cross-sections you can see. The same elements are there, but how they're arranged depends on what use and what higher priorities need to be there. This is similar, Charlotte has this already up and running, so we're gonna have something very similar to this. Each one of those roads has a different category. You can click on that line, and one of these little cross sections will pop up, and it'll show you what does this look like in front of my house. So if I want to go know what Old Statesville Road's going to look like on the south side of town, I can click on it. It may look different than Old Statesville Road on the north side of town, and it should, depending on what type of land use is around there. But this will help us, DOT, CAT, and everybody plan for these facilities as folks do development and move things online. So we'll have this up and running. We've got the beta version in-house. We've been playing with it. It's working pretty well. Francis is doing a great job making sure all that's gonna work and go online in the next couple months. And here we are. We started back in January of last year, finishing up now. Like I said, we do have that draft in-house. We're gonna tighten that up and bring that to you guys in the next 2 or 3 months to get that adopted. And then what's next to the planning department? We're gonna propose some text amendments this year. The big one is to address land use policy LU8, and this is gonna change how we look at conditional zoning for now and for the foreseeable future. Before Jack left, he left us with some really good ideas and some frameworks, and Brad's been great picking that up. We're gonna tighten that up some more. We're gonna meet with Anthony and Emily, and get you guys some language here the next month or two, and put that in front of you. But what that's gonna do is it's gonna give some more freedoms to the developer, and it's gonna give some more freedoms to you guys. Right now, we have some limitations because of the way the ordinance is written, but this will allow for really good development in town. So we're very hopeful we'll get that crafted, and I see questions. We'll get that crafted and get that in front of you guys shortly. Yes?
Can you expand a little bit on the employment center zoning and, you know,
Sure.
beyond what's written in, you know,
So
the
this
plans, but-
statement's directly out of the 2040.
Yeah.
So as we craft this, we need to put some limitations in and put some freedoms in for folks. So can't talk much about that case. I'm trying to think of an example.
So you're trying to put parameters in place that sort of how you, on the conditional
Right.
rezoning process, I don't wanna say box it in, but there's some freedom within the box.
Correct. Yeah, that's about it.
Emily probably would do a good job at it, but,
Yeah.
she'd probably do a good job explaining, but I think at the end of the day, we wanna put some guidelines around
Correct.
what you can do within that box.
Correct. And not the Wild West, but, you know, held the rein in a little bit. Does that make sense?
It is, yeah.
Sure. The next one I've had so many folks ask about, when am I gonna be able to build townhomes in downtown or in town, period? Right now, we do have that percent attached limitation throughout town at 30%. What can we do about that? We can look at introducing townhomes as a use by right or with conditions in downtown. You know, I'll talk to you guys offline, or we can talk about it today. Is there interest in having that within the quarter mile of the town center, similar to we allow businesses along thoroughfares? Is that something you guys are interested in? We can craft this language to be anything we want it to be. Do you want to increase the percent of it attached if they're townhomes, if they're affordable? There's so many things we can do. Again, we need to get together as a team, figure out where we want this to go, then we can write the laws to make that happen. And then the other one, simplify the residential dwelling unit descriptions. Right now, you've got attached single family, detached single family, attached multi. It's crazy. You have to really pay attention to what you're doing. I want to put this in kitchen English and call a spade a spade. In this zoning district, you can have a single family home, a townhome, a triplex, a quadplex, or multifamily. Call it straight out. Anybody can pick up the book. Anybody can read it. Anybody can know the answer. And then, so we'll see that. Lauren Spade's been crafting that language. That one's very in-depth because it hits so many parts, so many codes. It's going to take a lot of work to get that lined up before we get that to you, and that's going to take a lot of hours. And again, Emily and Jacob will be happy to help us with that as well. And that's what's coming up for us. And I'm here if you guys have any questions. Yes, sir.
So I've heard, some comments and, about, God, there's a lot of multifamily coming to town. And maybe board members have heard some of this, but, just starting to get some of that feedback about there's a ton of apartments. And how would, of course, I don't expect you to have data today to say, well, we got this many apartments and we got a ton, or we really don't have a lot,
Well,
whatever.
I'll say this. Ryan and his team, UNCC did an economic study a couple years ago, and we had the lowest percentage of apartments of any community in Mecklenburg County. They just released a new study. I have not gotten my hands on it yet. I'm going to assume we're probably in that same category, even though you have seen an uptick in those things. But I will say,
Is that because we're in a watershed, so we have so much protected land?
We do. Everything west of the railroad, so basically everything west of 115 is in a protected watershed. As you go further west, it gets more intense. So a lot of that land's protected. You can't do a lot of things in there. That's why you see most of our apartments are along 115, mainly in Brighton. You do see some up at Burkdale and those types of areas. In those mixed-use nodes, that's where they should be. I think our plan is well crafted to concentrate where those things can go and should go. So you're not going to see them out on Vegas Ford Road. You're not going to see them out east on Asbury Chapel, where they don't belong. That's if we stick to our plan, we will see some. You won't see it like Charlotte, where they're everywhere. I know you go down there. There's a rezoning sign down by the mall. The mall was originally designed to be corporate offices. Now it's apartments, apartments, apartments. So I think a lot of folks do see that and think it's Huntersville, but it's actually in Charlotte. So you have some of that going on. It's hard to build an apartment complex in Huntersville. I can't tell you there's not a day or a week that we don't get a phone call. I want to put apartments here, and the answer is no. And we don't hear from them again, but I get at least 2 or 3 phone calls a week. I know the team does as well. And 9 times out of 10, you never have a follow-up conversation. So we are building some. Again, you saw that approved number in there. A lot of that has some bloat left over from Brighton. But we do have that lower percentage. Bobby, did you happen to find that latest report? That's okay. We'll find that when Ryan gets that latest report. We'll make sure to get that in your guys' hands, and it'll explain the housing situation up here in Huntersville. But we're in good shape. Yes.
When you say the lowest percentage, is that based on population or land size, or how's that determined?
Percent of units, if I recall from the report last time. So if we had 100,000 homes, 200 were apartments. If you went to Charlotte, it was 100,000 and maybe 2,000 apartments. So it was just straight percentage of housing stock.
And when we get that study, probably what we'll do, I know Ryan has a draft, and Jackie actually has one on her. So we can maybe give an update to the board with that study. Maybe it's a pre-meeting, and that may help lead some, or give you some information, and you can give us some guidance.
Yep. What else? Yes, ma'am.
So you and I have talked about some ideas on what we can do to make, you mentioned earlier the downtown, we don't have to do it the same way as everywhere else. So we brainstormed some thoughts about what we could do with downtown, and we've talked about parking options.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas we can have for parking. You're starting to see a trend nationally for communities to eliminate parking standards or parking minimums. We were one of the first to implement parking minimums And our number was set artificially low on purpose to let folks build to what they need themselves. Currently, a typical commercial building is one space for every 500. A lot of folks traditionally had double that requirement in their ordinances, and now we're seeing the same cities who had double what we had going down to 0 and saying, you know what, let the market figure out what they want to park. Chapel Hill has a program that we're going to start exploring. They've got a pay in lieu. So if you want to build a building in a certain area, you would write a check to the city, and then basically you're participating in their funding of a public parking deck that they're doing. Recently went down there on a college visit for my daughter. I parked downtown in their nice garage. It was a couple dollars. I think I was there for 6 or 7 hours. It was like $5. So minimal cost to me as a someone coming and visiting their town. So there's a lot of different things we can do. Case in point, if Golden Cow, which was recently approved, didn't need to put those 11 spots on town, they could have had a bigger building. If they could have written a check and lease spaces somewhere else. We can look at shared parking agreements. There's not a silver bullet for this, but again, we'll get together as a community and decide what's best for Huntersville and best for downtown. But I would anticipate sometime this year, or late this year, early next year, we look at eliminating or modifying our parking standards, especially for downtown.
Thank you.
Is that it? Yes?
Answer the question from before about small versus large.
Come on over.
I was just gonna say, it's 10 acres.
10 acres? Okay, so there it is. Oh, thanks, Brian. All right, I'm just gonna read this real quick. So right now, currently, of our housing stock, only 18% is multifamily or apartments. And that is, our next closest is Cornelius, but they also have condos, so they're more, we are well below everybody else. Mecklenburg County as a whole, it's 32%, we're 18%. Davidson, let me count this real quick. They're at 21%. Cornelius, 32%. Charlotte, 35%. So we still have the lowest percentage of apartments per housing stock of anybody in the county.
Is that, I was gonna say, is that finalized, that report?
Yeah. The final one?
So maybe we can send it to
Yeah.
the mayor and board, so they'll have access to that.
Absolutely.
Are
Brian.
condos counted in that? Oh, sorry. Does that include condos? Or is that
Condos,
rentals
yes, they
only?
have a separate for condos, so I just quickly did some math for condos and apartments. Yeah. We have one condo project in town, and that's actually a single-family condo project. It's not, we have no multifamily condos. So, again, back to this multifamily, that can be, in the future, that will be apartments or condominiums. We are talking to one developer about having for sale, they're calling them flats, but they really, it's for sale apartments or condos. Yes?
But a condo's ownership,
Correct.
it's like a house or a
Correct.
townhouse. Apartments
Yeah,
are
so
rentals.
here's something, and I'll kind of.
So we shouldn't be, are we talking about
yeah.
bundling apartments and condos? That
Well,
wouldn't,
I want to kind of lean over to Emily a little bit on this one. We can't get in the business of ownership. We know of 2 for rent subdivisions coming into town. We cannot differentiate between someone rents it or someone owns it. That's just the way that the state law is written now. We treat them the same depending on ownership. Does that make sense?
but when you use the number of 18% in Huntersville as
That was just apartments.
just apartments.
We have no multifamily condominiums in Huntersville.
But those would still be in a separate category because.
Yes, this study
Okay.
broke them out. So
Okay. I heard you say something about Cornelius. It was,
I concatenated those 2 together for
I gotcha.
condos and apartments, real quick. As if we had a high-rise or mid-rise that was condos, I'd have thrown that in multifamily as well.
but I think from our perspective, we see rental versus ownership.
Sure,
So
absolutely, absolutely.
what is Cornelius's just apartments?
Bobby, what was Cornelius's just apartments?
Just apartments.
I think it was just 18.
They were 18.
It was 18, but they have several condo projects up towards the lake.
Okay.
Which would be in that number they added. I think they had, 10 or 12% condos?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just emailed the report to everybody, it's on page 32. Cornelius condos is 13%.
Okay. Sure.
Any other questions for
Yeah, I've
Brian?
got one more.
Yes.
So can you help explain for, when you have a subdivision project,
Mhm.
and I'm trying not to name anyone specifically, that may have been approved 20 years ago,
Mhm.
and then they come back and are adding on new phases.
Mhm.
Are those new phases kind of grandfathered in for, that they would be under the, whatever the rules and zonings were 20 years ago, or are they subject to today's?
So let me ask you this for clarification. Are the new phases outside of the original approval boundary? I know what you're talking about. So in that situation, that answer is yes. No, those new phases, if they're outside of the original approval boundary, are subject to the current laws. So I've heard that same question before, and I've tried to dispel that as much as I can. It keeps staying out there. So I live there. But no, each new phase is under the rules of the time, as long as it's outside of the original project boundary.
Perfect.
There's still development inside the original project boundary going on.
Okay,
So,
that answers, thank
Yep.
you.
Any other ones? He'll be here all day, so you can hit him up all day.
all right.
Well, we're gonna jump around a little bit. Laura doesn't know it yet, but we're gonna jump to Laura and skip because she's so important.
So a little bit about the things that Laura is within Laura's area of authority. She's the HR director. She handles risk management. You need to think of risk management of anything that's related to any kind of insurance claim. So workers' comp, property, general liability, and then anything related to the employee benefits, health insurance and such. She also handles the town, responsible for the town safety program. Think about recruitment, onboarding new hires, and then offboarding when somebody leaves. All of that's within Laura's purview. She also handles compensation and benefits. Y'all, there's probably gonna be a slide or two about that, and employee engagement and wellness. We have employees with zeros in their anniversaries this year. Laura just celebrated 10 in 23.
Congratulations.
And she's been our HR director since September 2019, and she holds certifications from the Public Sector HR Association. Laura, thank you.
Thank you. You know, chaos of getting switched up in my order here kind of has a theme this year. As you all know, have heard this time last year, I think was the first mention we had of adding fire to the town. This year, I feel like we're juggling a few things, including fire. It's been an interesting year. I know Detoli will be speaking in 2 weeks with you all, so I don't want to steal his thunder, but with everything that has been going on with that, I do want to take a Grammy moment and thank a lot of people. Some in this room, Jackie and Kevin Fox, both were very helpful in the assessment process. Last month we had pretty much 3 solid weeks of assessments to go through all of the positions. They were very, very helpful in that process, as well as Steve Robbins, David Moore, Brenda in HR, and Patty, who will be taking the next step as we begin to onboard the fire. So my presentation is very similar each year. I start with an overview, staffing overview, where we are by department, what our turnover rate looks like, vacancy rates, talk a little bit about what is out there as far as trending topics in HR and how those might affect us, what we might look at in the next year, and then go over a few different projects that we've been working on this year, that we will be working on, and any other new pieces that we've added this year, and then of course, what's next. So this slide, I see why Brian came out here. Although I do not want a karaoke moment. On the left, you can see our total full-time positions by year over the last several years. And then by department, the budgeted positions for the current fiscal year, and then our full-time current numbers by each department. This time last year, we were about 28 positions down. And as you can see over to the left, we had about 25 less positions. So, long story short here, we're in pretty good shape as far as filling positions, better than we were last year. This does include the fire positions that we just added in December. So administration right now is full, EDC right now is full, engineering right now is full, fire. You'll see I've got 19 budgeted positions, 18 of those are full-time. One is the chief's position that we have over in the part-time category. We have offers out right now for all 18 of those positions, so probably in the next month we'll be full for the full-time fire positions as well. Parks and Rec right now is down 1 position. Planning is down 2. Police is down 1 position right now, and that's a civilian position. We do have an offer out. We expect that position to be starting in the next month also. And then Public Works is down 4 positions. We do have a request to hire out for 1 of those 4 positions.
Can I record you on the police? Because I don't think I've ever heard that before. We full, maybe, close?
If that 1 person comes on like we expect them to come on, we will be full in the police department. We actually do have, and I'm sure Chief Graham will talk about this a little bit, 1 potential overhire situation for a police officer.
So what that means is there's a conditional out, and assuming that person meets the conditional, we could be over.
Correct. And we do that in other departments sometimes where we know we have some regular transition, some turnover in that department. We may go into an overhire situation so that we know that we may lose some positions. If we've had vacancies throughout the year, we have the budgeted funds to cover that position even when we're in an overhire situation. So, yes, Anthony, we'll be full.
We've never had that luxury in a long, long time. I don't know when. I have to ask Chief probably. But I think it's, as Laura said, the key is we know there's some folks that, we're gonna retire, et cetera. So if we can overhire, we'll be hopefully ramped up to, fill that spot and still stay even at least. So, I think it's a great thing.
Well, good job.
Yeah.
Actually, that's Laura and I'm gonna say Kowser and a bunch of people, but it's a great thing.
So this is a year-by-year turnover, highlights our hires and separations. Again, these are budgeted positions, full-time positions. Obviously, hires are new people coming on. Separations can be voluntary, involuntary, and the retirements are included in that separation number. Again, right now, we're at about 4% for the current fiscal year. Even if you take out fire, which kind of helps our turnover rate a little bit, even if you take out fire, we're still just below 5% for turnover for this year. This time last year, we were at about 13%. As you can see across the bottom, it spiked hopefully for us in 2023. That's pretty consistent across the board. With COVID, a lot of movement was starting to happen during COVID. I'm hoping that that's the peak for us. I would say nationally, the average turnover rate is like 47%, 20% in public sector. So again, hoping that trend stays for us, that we, and we'll talk about it a little bit in the trends. I think for a while there was a period where it was very common for people to be changing positions even within the same year more often than they have in the past. That is starting to slow down. We're not seeing that as much in the HR world, so that's a good thing for us. Any questions on anything so far? Typically we'll get asked okay, you talk about it overall, where are we by department? So again, you've got your budgeted positions, your separations, turnover rate, this is for this year, and then last year's turnover rate. I won't go individually through these. Again, as we've been able to get a lot of positions filled, I would say the one that stands out for us the most is Public Works. While their turnover rate is 4%, their vacancy rate is 18%, and that vacancy rate has been at about that for 2-3 years. In the past, we've had more turnover in Public Works, but right now it's just getting people into the door is difficult. And part of that, I will say, the vacancy positions are equipment operators and crew leaders. Both of those require a CDL. We've seen issues with that. I don't know if that's what's causing the difficulty, but we're having a hard time. We'll talk a little bit more just about pay. Public Works for those positions. We're looking at the construction industry, and we have some pay issues there.
You said equipment operators, and what was the other thing?
Crew leader.
Crew leader, thank you.
So in the operations, there's Public Works technician, equipment operator, and then crew leader are what makes up each of the crews.
And the private sector's just beating us up on that. We can't keep them, I'm sure. Kevin's gonna tell you all about it later.
Laura? How does that vacancy rate compare to other nearby towns?
I don't have exact numbers of their vacancy rates. I will say that the positions that I see out there are similar positions. So we're all competing for the same group of individuals. Planning, while we're quote unquote only down 2, that is another area where right now we just don't see the market. The number of people out there looking is just not the same as it was, say, 15 years ago. We had a similar issue with engineering, I would say, over the last few years. I think if we have a vacancy in engineering, it would be the same situation. So, of course, I just talked a little bit about compensation. This year, we have contracted with Evergreen to do a full classification and compensation study. This is the second full study we've done since, well, the first since 2015. The last few years, what we've been doing is breaking up the positions in thirds to do a third, a third, a third to try to stay on track. Last year, with the craziness of the markets, we just decided to go ahead and do a full study again this year to try to get everybody at the same time. I know and hear it, a lot of other organizations are doing the same thing. Everybody is competing for the same limited number of people in the public sector, and so trying to stay ahead of that is difficult. We have, I just messaged the consultant yesterday. We've got 16 of our 17 target peer data back, and we'll be meeting next week to start discussing what that information looks like. You can see the timeline over there. We went out to market with 83 positions, which means we asked those 17 peer cities, how do you pay these different positions? We have about 95 positions, so we didn't look at every position. And we don't do that typically if there is a natural progression, say an administrative assistant 1, an administrative assistant 2, we might not do both of those positions. So that's why we have a few less. They are also looking at benefits for us. Same survey, trying to see what other organizations are doing as far as new benefits, how we compare, say, for vacation leave, sick leave, holiday. Those are definitely pieces that in the public sector we look at more and more. If we can't match in comp, how do we find other ways to attract people to work for the town?
Excuse me. How long is this stay with Evergreen? Like, what's the time frame for them to conduct the study and get back with you?
So we started in October.
Okay.
We will have the initial results back next week. I hope that by the time the budget, we are working on the budget, that we'll have the majority of the data we need back to decide if we need to move positions around, if we need to make any adjustments.
Okay, and that comes with recommendations as well for your benefit packages, is all of that, correct? Okay.
Yep.
So Laura, the outside consultant sent out the request for those 17 peers to respond in January?
Correct.
And you expect that consultant to come to a board meeting, and so the board will have an opportunity to speak directly to the person who performed the study?
Yes.
The firm?
Yes. So I would expect that will possibly be in March, maybe early April.
Which will be plenty of time for us to, make adjustments, get feedback from the board and make adjustments in the budget as we present the manager's budget in time. So we should.
The other piece that we'll talk with the consultant about, so each year, as part of the budget packet, we make a recommendation for a potential cost of living adjustment and a merit increase. That's something that would be part of the budget process. We'll work with them also to see, as we implement any changes here, how we line all of that up within the budget year. Maybe we adjust for that on the front end versus having a separate adjustment in July. We'll talk with them about that. So this is just what's out there, what are the trending topics out there. Pay transparency is one that you can see big. That's not really an issue for us because we share all of our information. We post our pay on all of our positions. That in the private industry is something that is becoming more of a focus for them. I would say it's still hard to get private industry data on what they're paying employees. Benefits, again, you can see on some of the different pieces there are a big concern for everyone. Health insurance you hear about is always increasing, but also what other types of things can we offer to employees that maybe we aren't offering now. Mental health continues to be a hot topic, definitely a concern for us, and making sure that we have what we need to help our employees come to work every day and go home every day in a good mental state. So those are just some of the different things that are out there right now. I will say remote only hiring continues to fall. I will say that's something that we see more and more of industries bringing people back into the office. I would say that's doesn't mean that we don't still want to allow some remote work for our employees. But part of that, I think, is driving people's desire to not jump around quite as much because the opportunities that were there 2 years ago to be completely remote aren't necessarily there anymore.
I've got a question on that one.
Yep.
I'm just curious what, especially because hearing from planning, how I think you had double the amount last year. What do we currently do in the area of mental health for employees and preventing burnout and that kind of thing?
So mental health, we have an employee assistance program which is available to all employees. That allows employees up to 6 visits per issue and for everyone in their family per year, unlimited issues. That's a resource we have, and I'll talk about this as part of the next slide also. We do try to bring in wellness speakers. Last year, both of the 2 that we did with our EAP were both on mental health. So bringing in those resources, our new medical insurance carrier Cigna has a lot of tools available for employees as far as mental health apps that they can use. Directors, certainly we try to reiterate with directors to be aware of what their employees are doing, look out for signs of burnout or, you know, Brian mentioned working lots of hours. I think we all do that, and it's certainly a balance, and trying to make sure that as you're doing that, you take the opportunity to enjoy work, do some things at work, go to lunch. I think some of those little things that seem like little things, they're not. They really help people enjoy coming back to work, but also just to have the opportunity to take a little bit of a break. So with that, we do the wellness event.
Sorry, I have another
Sorry,
question
it's
on the
okay.
last slide. So I work for the trade industry, for the financial services and insurance industry right now, and we do a lot of research in regards to these types of trends that are on the slide. I am super curious, like right now, we're seeing an uptick in pet insurance being offered as a benefit to folks. I'm curious what we've looked at as benefit offerings.
So this year is the first time, gosh, since I've been here, 10 years, that we've added some additional voluntary benefits. I would say we look at them throughout the year. One thing that we try to be cognizant of is having the offerings and making sure that they align with staff and what resources they want, but also being cautious about not saying, here are 50 different things that you can choose from. I go through open enrollment, how this all seems awesome. I get my first paycheck, and now I'm like, did I really need to add that? So our EAP McLaughlin Young does have some discount programs related to some of those different things, and that's another one when we talk about just benefits and trying to engage employees with, these are your benefits, these are resources that you have available to you. Make sure that they know what those resources are, because there are a lot of pieces like the pet health insurance that, while we may not offer it as a payroll deduction option, it is something that is within some of the packages for discounts that we can share that information so that they know that they have, you know, potential options out there.
Okay, thanks.
Hey Laura, do you mind talking a little bit about how much remote work employees actually engage in? Or like hybrid work, how many times a week do they work from home?
Sure. So post-COVID, during COVID, we made an adjustment to the personnel policy that was a little bit more open, as far as we had people who were potentially fully remote. We had some people that we needed them in the office certain days, and so we were varying schedules so that maybe one was in one day, one the next day, and they alternated like that. Post-COVID, we allowed for up to 2 days a week of remote work. That was something that we talked with the department heads about, as far as what do you see a need for, what do you feel like you would be comfortable with, and what are your employees asking for. So right now, I would say we probably have 10 to 15 employees taking advantage of either 1 or 2 days of remote work.
And they fill out a form that goes to their department heads. Obviously, we don't want everybody to take off Friday, you know, so the department heads sort of look at that and work out those details, and that comes back to the manager's office to sign off on this short version. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, and I would say that's for a set remote schedule. You know, I might have a day where I've got something that I just really want to be able to concentrate on, not be in the office and have, you know, not that people interrupt, but interruptions. That may be a one-off type remote situation where I may work from home for an afternoon or a day here and there, but not part of a set schedule.
Yeah, we're very flexible. We do not say you got to punch a time clock. That's just, no one does it hopefully anymore. So we're very flexible. As long as you do your job, we understand things happen. You need to work from home, et cetera, so no issues.
And I would say that the flip side to that is another piece that we're seeing with engagement is that employees are feeling less engaged. I don't know that it's necessarily because of remote working, but trying to find ways to continue to engage employees who are remote on a regular basis is also something that's important. Benefit offerings, we talked a little bit about. The last two pieces, career development, progression, and training, are areas of focus that we know we need to keep looking at. Career development, again, how do you grow people within the organization, either for opportunities to move up when those opportunities come, or possibly just to get some incentives. If I'm a public works technician and I get my CDL, is there an opportunity for something there? And training, we've talked about this, supervisory training, employee training, just bringing that to the forefront again. I think that helps both with obviously upskilling, but also engagement, where we have opportunities for employees to be together, see each other, run ideas off of each other from different departments is a great opportunity for us. Helps with engagement, and it just helps us connect as a community organization.
I'm sorry, I have a question. For your career development and progression, currently, does the town offer like a tuition reimbursement program for those that are in school that are working? Do you currently have that, or is that something you're looking towards providing?
We do. So that was another piece that I would say 2 years ago, we added that. Used to be the police department was the only place that had a written program for that, so we've opened that up to all employees. It's up to $2,000 per fiscal year reimbursement for tuition.
Can you tell us more about that bottom picture?
We're getting a lot of mileage out of this picture. Thank you, Mary, Bobby, and Michael. That was our chili cook-off. So we had a chili cook-off in October of this year. That was our panel of judges who got to weigh in on the chili. That's something that we're going to do again this year. We've gotten a lot of feedback about the taste of chili and whether or not we need to have different categories, spicy versus vegetarian versus savory or sweet. So, and I have to thank the engagement committee. I didn't mention that. We reinstituted an engagement committee, so we meet periodically throughout the year to decide things like the cook-off or plan our luncheons. We're also looking at more pop-up events this year, just kind of the one-off coming through with popsicles or popcorn. We've done that in the past, and it's crazy how some of those things are the things that people talk about the most or want again. So we're looking at doing more of those. The other two pictures, the top one is from the chili cook-off, and then the middle one is one of our wellness sessions where we were learning about meal planning, I think. We do other things. We do financial fitness. So we've had our retirement 401k come in, talk a little bit about Elgers. We've had the local government federal credit union come in and talk about budgeting. We had estate planning this year, which I think was a great, it was a very interesting presentation. It's something that you don't think of very often. Good opportunity to do that at work where people maybe don't have the time to think about that outside of work, but gives them an opportunity to come in, again, have some fellowship with their other employees, maybe have lunch. That always increases participation. But then learn about things that are just good for us all to be aware of and prepare for in life. Any other questions? Safety and risk management. Jackie mentioned this. This year we added a position that is dedicated to safety and risk. Super excited about that. David is our safety and risk coordinator. He joined us in October and really has already helped put his fingerprint on what we're doing as far as safety and risk, where I would say we were a little bit limited in really going out and working specifically with departments and facilities. He's had the time to go out when we've had an issue at a facility, go out, meet with the adjuster, look at the problem, try to figure out, is this something that we can prevent in another building? If it's, unfortunately, Parks and Rec, we've had a little bit of trouble with some frozen pipes. How can we better address that in the future so that it's not something that we continue to have happen? Injuries, again, this week he met an employee at urgent care to make sure they had the medical authorization and knew what to do. Where in the past that has been a lot of email communication and working with supervisors to help provide that information. It's more of a direct link to us to be able to take care of, getting medical treatment if it's needed, assisting with the flow of, vehicles if there's an accident between us and the shops. The emergency action plan updates, those are for each of our buildings. We had very general ones. He's been able to go in and make them very specific to each building, which I think has been helpful for employees to know in this building where exactly do I need to go if there's an emergency versus generally you need to find a safe space. That's, it's helpful, but it's nice to have the detail. He also has history in emergency management and has volunteered to help be an assistant in the emergency management for the town.
And he's also was a great asset, not that, the timing's been perfect, great guy, very smart, but has a ton of fire experience. He's a retired fireman from Charlotte and has been a great asset as we've transitioned. I know that's not up there, but he's been a super asset.
Yeah.
How many,
Laura?
Yes.
how many workplace incidents or accidents have happened over the last couple of years, do you know?
So typically we have, I would say, between 20 and 30 vehicle accidents, and the same for workplace injuries.
Per year?
Mm-hmm. Which doesn't seem like a lot. But depending on the severity, and the follow-up that's needed, a workplace injury may be anything from a cut that needs stitches to ongoing physical therapy. So there's a lot of follow-up with some of those types of injuries. I would say facility types of incidents, we probably average about 5 to 10 of those a year. Another piece that we get a lot of calls on, but don't necessarily have a lot of liability for, are sidewalk claims, where someone may trip on a sidewalk. That's a piece that comes up periodically. Again, those because they're how many miles of sidewalk? 287 miles of sidewalk across the town, making sure that being able to be proactive enough to know where every potential hazard is unrealistic. Trying to think of what other, those are the main ones.
Is that accident and injury rate is that comparable to most employers of our size?
I don't know that for sure. I would say yes. So typically that's not something that is, I'm sure if we asked for it, we could figure it out. DART rate, days away and recordable time. Thank you, Bobby. From an OSHA perspective, that's how industries are rated. The way that our DART rates are set up is a little bit skewed. It's across 3 different groupings, and that is also based on an average industry number of hours worked. So police department is always pretty good because there's over 130 people generally that are working there. Public Works and Parks and Rec over at our Siegel facility, because there are about 40 people out of that facility, we always have a higher DART rate there, but that doesn't mean that we're doing anything wrong. And where we have had consultative meetings with OSHA, I would say we get continued positive feedback about our programs, our written programs, and what we're doing in the workplace.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, you were saying 20 to 30 employee accidents per year if we have 226 employees. It seems like a lot to me. I mean, is that more heavily skewed? Obviously, police are, you know.
Not necessarily, and so a recordable as injury is so it could be more than that as far as actual, you know, I fell and hurt my knee or ankle. If there's nothing beyond first aid, it's not a recordable injury. But a lot of them may be very simple solutions. So if I strain my ankle, that could be a recordable injury if I'm giving an anti-inflammatory or something like that. So I don't think it's high for our industry.
Laura, a lot of our folks, maybe at Siegel, work outside a lot. It's unusual for you to have a year go by when you don't have a bee sting, and that's reportable.
Yeah.
Or police is transporting someone to Charlotte and they get, someone spits on them. They've got to go get checked for fluid exchange, things like that.
Okay.
So severity.
Break your shoulder, 2 days later it's fine, but we report it just in case there is something wrong with it the next morning, he or she's fine.
As I say, with police, obviously, you're
Yeah,
engaging people in a
right.
different way than most departments are,
It's a
so.
report that we're doing, but it doesn't necessarily mean anyone's hurt and there's no money or anything like that, but it's a reportable event.
Okay.
And I would say we're on the cautious side and recommend always that you report an injury, because we want to make sure that if anything comes of it, I give examples of you hit your finger and it feels fine and I don't say anything, and the next day it's 3 sizes bigger than it was the day before. We want to make sure that we have
Trail.
yeah, we have the information so that we can get it taken care of if it escalates into something else.
Okay, that's a little different perspective then.
Do you have an idea of how many are actually like an issue? Like how many turn into
Severe.
of those ones that turn into like an ongoing thing?
I mean, it's
I would say probably 5 or less
Okay.
a year.
30.
And typically those are situations where it may be physical therapy
Yeah.
is going on, or something more severe.
Okay.
So today and tomorrow, you'll hear from departments about what they think they might be looking for in the future. Estimate of what I have heard so far in the last month or so is that maybe looking to add up to 15 full-time positions across the town. The part-time, that's fire, looking at potentially adding the 80 to 100 part-time employees there. Again, with everything that we've talked about, just making sure that we, HR, and our organization is ready to support those employees and be available as we continue to grow. All of these issues will continue to be issues, and again, just making sure that we know what we're expecting as far as growth and how we're gonna be able to address that in the future.
And what I would say on this slide, 265 and 110 is, there's no guarantee that, managers are gonna come forward with that. We're just hearing and, making the cases and to get feedback from you, i.e., are we gonna bring over the part-time, firemen under the umbrella? Obviously, you heard us talk about that, but we'll have more discussion and get that feedback and come back with a recommendation. So those are not exact science. 10 of them are police officers, just to let you know. But we still got to figure out how we pay for them, what departments, is that needed or not. So don't hold it as an exact science is all I was going to say.
Just looking back through my notes that were up here, a couple things I did want to point out. As far as retention of employees, 5 years is kind of the milestone mark of whether you're going to stick with us or you're going to move on. Currently, 50% of our employees have been with the town 5 years or less. So again, speaking to retention, the more we can do on a daily basis to support them and make them want to come back to work, the more likely they are to stay, the more likely we'll get them past that 5-year mark. Once they're here beyond 5 years, I think the average, so for the other 50%, the average tenure with us is about 10 years.
Well, when you do your exit interviews, what is the number one reason for employees to separate?
I would say the number one reason is opportunity. I think as the size of organization that we are, we're not big enough to have, back to the career growth, we're not big enough to have a lot of opportunities to move up in the organization. And so if you're in a spot where you know, the people above you have been here 10 years and you think they're gonna be here another 20 years, it becomes a point where you have to decide, am I gonna stay with this organization and hope that something comes up, or am I gonna look for opportunities elsewhere to grow?
Excellent.
Can I ask that question different, Laura?
Sure.
When we negotiate with a potential new hire, what is a frequently requested hook? Is it money? Is it additional money? Is it different benefits, work from home? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what is a frequently sought benefit or cash?
I would say pay is always most important when someone's looking to come into the organization. Behind that, the most frequent question that we get, and typically this comes after directors have already talked with them, is what are the benefits? What's the cost? How much is, you know, adding family to insurance going to cost here versus where I am now?
Any other questions? Well, you got more slides?
Nope, that's it.
Great
Thank
job,
you.
Laura. I was just gonna say, we had to switch around a little bit, but we're running pretty decent on time.
Yeah. We figured before we jump into the next section, we take a little 5-minute break so people can fill up their coffee and take a bathroom break and all that stuff. So
Larry, we good?
take a pause for a moment.
Good, okay.
The agenda says 15 minutes, but
Yeah, how
I'll
long?
compromise to 10. How's that?
What else? Oh, no, she did. I mean, it's true. So I'm petty, I'm messy. What was the other thing? I just know. I'm cool with it.
Just the color.
Yeah.
Are the mics still on?
No.
Oh, okay. I felt like I was drinking a beer as I'm turning this up. Get rid of my trash. Great job, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't even see that you had the timeline up there. I was just like. Oh. So I think that's what.
Well, it always helps when somebody else cries on his
have our friend Ryan. We literally have a friend here to start us off with economic development.
So Ryan, if you let me do a little bit.
Hold on, Larry, let me know when we're live.
Yeah, we're on, your mics are hot, everybody.
So, ideally, all of you have met Ryan McDaniels. Ryan McDaniels is the Executive Director of the Economic Development Corporation. Ryan, just like our previous two speakers, Ryan had a anniversary with a 0 in it. He was 10 years in the spring of 23. A little bit of history on the EDC. In the year 2000, there was no Lake Norman EDC. And so the three towns discussed getting together and having one EDC serve the North Mecklenburg area. I would say we benefit two ways. Number one, we're not competing against each other. So when a prospective business is coming into town, there might be a site specifically suited to Davidson or Huntersville or Cornelius, and he's able to coordinate where the best fit might be. And they might see a place in two different towns, but he's at least able to coordinate that so there's less competition. And let's face it, one EDC director for the three towns is less expensive. So it was twofold a benefit. I want to read you, and I want to tell you what I hear missing. What I hear, you tell me if you hear missing. I want to tell you from their website what it says their purpose is. So, to assist local businesses with expansion efforts, to develop and support workforce training programs, recruit new businesses to the region, and serve as consultants to identify potential real estate sites. We had some chatter now about what we can do to assist small businesses. That's not what you heard here. So, and you didn't hear from Brian Richards and his group this morning either. And so if that's something that we want to pursue, that would be a new initiative that we just need to vet through and decide where that. Ryan, thank you for your patience with me.
Can you hear me? Okay, that's good. All right. I feel like a stand-up comedian up here. I'll try not to stay, I'll try to stay within the camera so you're not just seeing a picture of my belly. But Jackie did a great job of giving an overview. So that's our organizational goal. She did allude to small business. We actually have had some good discussions with Mecklenburg County already about small business assistance. And we'll be able to get into more detail once we get sort of the schematics in place of how that should look. So I'm going to try to just go broad here and walk through how companies make selections on where they locate their business. So screening happens at the board level, happens at the CEO level. Companies make decisions, where do we want to be? What's important for a business? One good example is we need to be near an airport, a major international airport. We need to be near a port if we need to send things overseas. So that happens at the screening level. That happens before we even make contact with the company or they reach out to the state organization as well. Site work occurs when the companies actually reach out to us directly. When that happens, we're able to interact with them in the buildings and sites that we have in our community. We are able to present that to the companies and determine, is this a good fit? Negotiation is that, excuse me, negotiation is when the companies actually get involved with the building owner, the site owner, and allow them to interact on lease rates, rental rates, or pricing. We also will bring town planning staff into play, as well as engineering and other groups. Sorry, I rolled my ankle on the way over here. It's a little painful. Negotiation will also involve discussions with the town on if we need rezoning, sign variances, things of that nature. And then finalization, that's the fun part. That's what we're planning right now for a company in Huntersville. We actually get to go and have a ribbon cutting, have a grand opening. And then finalization shows once that project lands, we don't just give up on it. We actually go out and call on them. We'll set up existing industry visits with the state, with the county, just to make sure that everything is going fine and that they don't have any issues. So this is our project activity for from the last 10 years after we reorganized, we're super conservative with these figures. So if we don't interact with the project directly, we don't include it in those figures. So, for instance, a office locates in our community. If we weren't involved, we're not including those in those figures. So super conservative. We want to make sure we're actively engaged with each project. We now have an app. We're actually using the same vendor that the town of Huntersville does. So it's really our website condensed into app form. Lots of community information there if you need it. It's available on Apple and Google. So anytime you need to have a citizen has questions about basic information about the area, feel free to send them to our app. We've also added virtual tours. This was something that started in COVID, where if a company's in Wichita and they can't get physically to Huntersville, you can take virtual tours now of our buildings. We're actually going to add, you see we have, that's Selwyn Northridge. We're going to add some additional virtual tours once the leaves get back on the trees and it starts to look a little better. So we try to avoid this time of year just for the areas to look a little better. Workforce has been a big push for us. You see here that's a tour at Pester. And we actually take high school students from all three public schools, take them to our manufacturers, allow them to see how clean, safe, professional they are. And we actually won an award from the Central Iowa Regional Council for our efforts. So we have 2 programs in spring and 2 programs in the fall. One is the actual tours, that's Journey 360, and then speed networking, we're actually potentially doing that in person again, but right now we do it virtually so the business owners and community leaders can meet with the students, talk to them about how they ended up in their career. They always ask questions like, how much money do you make? The students are very upfront, so it's always interesting to see what questions they ask. And we actually had an internship program this summer where we had 19 interns from the various schools in our area. We placed them in 5 companies in total, 4 in Huntersville, and we actually had students hired out of that program already. So we're looking to ramp that back up. Really great experience. If you're ever curious, we'll send you the PowerPoint that has a lot of personal stories from the students. And it was really eye-opening. So another success for us on the workforce development side. We also host local business events. So this is on the left, Burkert, and on the right, Pester. So it's amazing sometimes our companies don't know each other, even though they're neighbors. So we allow them to interact. The event at Burkert on the left, we actually had German being spoken, Spanish, and English at the same time. So it's really cool to get the international feel of our businesses. And this is all of our contact info. We have our LNEDC is our website, and then we have Ascend LKN, which offers 3 different career path options in healthcare, IT, and advanced manufacturing. So feel free to reach out. We're here. We're a resource for you. And if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much. But yeah, it's we're here, we're a resource for you, so feel free, if there's any questions or anything I can answer, I'll be glad to help.
Very good. All right, well, we are obviously running a little ahead, but I promise you, and this is no negativity against Stephen and Kevin, but the road projects that we're gonna talk about are gonna take a long time because some of these, and this year will be a little bit, probably spend a lot more time. A lot of these projects takes years and years, so next year you'll see this project probably go through a little bit faster. But I think Kevin's gonna jump up first, and I know Jackie's gonna take over for me.
Sweet. So Kevin is the town public works engineer, and so think about the things that are under his area of responsibility, including maintenance of the town roads, town road construction management, stormwater, and parts of land development such as bond administration and inspection, the town's solid waste contract,
And new this year, fleet management. Kevin is a professional engineer, and Kevin has been a town employee for 18 years, our public works director in 2019. I'll just go ahead and talk about Stephen as well, because they're gonna tag team a little bit. You will see how their projects will overlap. Stephen also became the director of engineering in 2019. There's some logic to that. There was a gentleman who served as the town's public works director / town engineer for a period of time, and we decided that became too big an area of responsibility. We split those up when he left. That's why both of them became the directors in 2019. Stephen's been employed with the town since 2019. He's had his professional engineering certification since 2005.
2009.
Thank you.
Not his, sir. He was employed 2009.
Employed 2009, PE since 5. He manages a staff of 8 people. Some of those are other professional engineers, and much of that is surrounding land development and plan review. Many of the things that you will see Stephen speak about at a board meeting are things like traffic impact analysis, traffic calming devices when a citizen requests that, ADA sidewalk review, and you get a monthly update from him on construction projects. Okay, so Stephen's group will generally prepare, facilitate the design of a project. They get that ready to do a determine who the general contractor is going to be. Once we determine who's going to construct that road, then the project is frequently handed off to Kevin's group to manage the construction of the project. Okay, I got nothing left about Stephen. That was it. Thanks. Kevin.
All right, well, now that Jackie's done, if y'all have any questions.
Nice try.
Thank y'all for having us today. Glad to be here with you. Again, Kevin Fox, I'm the Director of Public Works, so just a few things at Public Works, as Jackie mentioned, some of them, CIP projects, roads, sidewalk construction, street maintenance, potholes, resurfacing, snow and ice removal, you know, the whole gamut of street and sidewalk. Recently, and there's a few slides, but just this past year, we added fleet maintenance into our purview. We do manage the solid waste contract out of the Public Works Department. Street lighting, which really means we just pay for the bill. We don't provide the actual the power, but we do pay for that bill out of our budget. And then the land development process, adding streets, developers build the streets. We do all the inspections and take those streets onto our system, and that's a board agenda that you guys, it comes to you guys to accept those streets for our maintenance.
Kevin, I know you're gonna get into some of these, but just a question on, just for folks on the, if you go back one slide, I was just gonna ask you a couple questions on, solid waste.
Yes.
Tell me how that works and who's the contract, you know, how many years, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so, just this past year, we were able to negotiate a contract with Waste Connections of the Carolinas. Obviously, we don't collect solid waste in-house. That's a contract service that is provided. We renewed that contract for a period of 7 years. So we're in year 1 of 7 with Waste Connections. In addition to that service, however, the town does provide what we call a bulk item pickup. We do that with our own Public Works forces. So how that works is people call or email, fill out a form saying they have an item that they need to be picked up. Generally, it's about $40 for us to come out and pick it up. So if you've got a washer or a dryer or a big pile of tree limbs or something that you need us to pick up, we do provide that service in-house. But as far as our rollout containers, that's serviced by a contract.
So since you brought up the solid waste, because I did have a question, I didn't know if we were going to talk about it later, because there have been a lot of problems in the past. So with the new contract, and has it been more consistent? I mean, have there been less problems with pickup?
You know, I tell people all the time, the amount of complaints that we hear, nobody calls you and says, hey, they did an awesome job picking up our trash. But they're picking up approximately 22,000 household units 2 times every week. and then once every other week. So that's a lot of opportunities to mess up. And I find that the amount of complaints that we receive, you know, when you put it into perspective, it's really not that big. You know, I think that we would probably have a lot of those same challenges even if we did do it in-house. That's a big coordination effort to pick up that amount of solid waste. So I will say that I think, I feel like we've always had pretty decent service out of Waste Connections. Sometimes back in the COVID period and maybe before, we had the driver transition was the biggest problem that we were seeing. They were like us, and we'll talk about it in our staffing, and Laura mentioned with the CDL drivers, you know, we have our own struggles with that, but they were having that too, because all of their drivers are CDL drivers. So driver turnover was the biggest issue we saw. You know, somebody was filling in and they didn't know every single nuance of the route, and people were getting missed. I think that's gotten better.
Kevin, you feel like the issue with getting down an alley has gotten better also?
Yeah, we've been able to work with a lot of the existing developments that have alleyways. Moving forward, we look at that type of thing in the design for the new subdivisions, but we've been able to go back and make some tweaks in existing neighborhoods, tweaking routes or tweaking, you know, doing some minor modifications to the intersections to make it more feasible for the trucks to get into.
And I think, just piggyback on Kevin, our philosophy is, at the end of the day, we know sometimes I may not put my trash out on time, but our philosophy as a customer, the taxpayer's always right. So we're gonna try to take care of that. Now, if I catch Anthony Roberts doing it all the time, every week, putting it out 2 days later, whatever, then because trucks have cameras, you know, and we're getting more technology on these trucks, but we still try to remind that, hey, can you please put it out? And if they get to be every week, then we probably gonna have to sit down and not pick it up. But for the most part, taxpayer, the customer's right. We all make mistakes, forget to put it out. They're very good about going back out to pick it up. They don't have to per the contract, but they do. It's just, that's what we want. It's customer service, paying for it, we're gonna do that. So they do a good job. The other thing I would say is, sometimes it becomes a problem that we try to work on is cans. So we'll get, every now and then, we'll get a complaint about the lid is busted, or I need a new can, you know, the truck may have sucked it up and threw it in the, so those, if you hear that, let us know so that we can take care of it, but, you know, we wanna tweak and make it better. So anything like that, you send it to me, send it to Kevin, we're gonna jump on it and make sure we get it taken care of.
Kevin, you talked about a 7-year contract. If memory serves, we agreed to a price per month, per household. So our garbage collector will make more money if we add units.
Yes.
And the price per pickup will only increase in 7 years for a factor of CPI.
CPI, and if the landfills end up going up on their disposal fees. So the way the contract is written, our price per house includes the tipping fee. So when they go to the landfill and dump out the waste, that price is included in our price, but it's got a baseline in it. So if the landfills go up on their price, then our contract allows for our collection agency to go up as well. So the only two ways that they can increase more money per the unit is the CPI and if the landfills go up on their price.
Wasn't there at one point like a gas escalation in there?
There was. We essentially got rid of that in this last contract.
Gotcha.
I do have a follow-up. Do you know if they've been updating like their fleet of vehicle or trucks and stuff? Because I know there had been some issues in the past with
hydraulic
like leaking and
yes.
And
so that was one thing that we looked at when we were in the negotiations is they agreed to a replacement schedule on their vehicles. Some of the other ones we were looking at, which I don't want to talk about that too much, but they were proposing a whole brand new fleet, which was pretty appealing. Year 1, 2, 3, but you know, year 7, you've got every vehicle is old. So we thought, and hopefully it comes out great, is they actually provided us the year model of every vehicle they're going to use on our contract, and then the replacement schedule. So every couple of years, we're getting a couple new trucks added to the fleet. And then, you know, obviously, they try to stay up on that maintenance as much as they can.
And that's part of the contract, so as Kevin said, he did a good job sort of making sure we stagger in new trucks at appropriate times.
Any other questions?
Mine, you might cover this, so I can pause this if you'd like, but I had questions about when we see road damage or how it helps, is there a reporting process about road damage, or like if a resident reports that they've hit a pothole, is there a claim process that we?
There is. If they have damage, generally we send that to the risk management folks to handle on that end. There are several different ways that we have a website portal that they can go in and report that damage, or they can, you know, call us at any time to report the actual pothole. And if there is a damage, we'll send them to the HR department, risk management, to handle the toll claim.
There too, also DOT, tell them how that works.
That's right. So, and we'll talk about, so the vast majority of the major roads in town belong to the North Carolina Department of Transportation. So when we receive those kind of issues, we can just forward them right along to the NCDOT.
And there's a form on their site. They have them fill out a form. And so if we get those, we send them that link and they fill out that form, and then they work through DOT on their claims department, et cetera.
Okay. I have heard of other towns using an app for reporting, like kind of like a Waze app, right, or a Google Maps app, where they can report to the town. Have we ever, like, there's a pothole at this specific spot? Have we ever considered something like that?
I know I've seen them too. Looked at. There's some other technology just came out. I may have just forwarded it, like maybe last day or two, that has a camera in vehicles, our vehicles, and we've had zero discussion. I just saw. I think it was in British Columbia somewhere. They're using cameras on vehicles that actually scans as you ride the road and assesses potholes and different features in the road that are wrong, even damage signs, color of signs, if they, you know, doesn't meet certain thresholds. It just came out. So something we have looked at, but we have not, that I'm aware of, purchased anything in the last 5 or 6 years.
Stephen wants to know if they had a sidewalk app.
So we are looking at that. Like I said, I can't remember whether I forwarded it to him yet. I literally just got it, but I think it's a pretty neat tool that may allow us to be more proactive than reactive. It's just a lot of those on DOT roads, but it still may help us in reporting to them. So it's something we'll look at, and we'll make sure we get you some feedback on that.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of ways. I mean, we get stuff through Ethan's portals, you know, all of the town outlets that Ethan manages. We get requests that way. We get them through our website portals, and of course, you know, generally people aren't scared to call and tell us too. So I think we know about most of them, I would say.
Great.
All right. Just a few things I want to hit on today. I could stand up here and talk forever, but we don't have that, and I'm trying to be very brief. Stephen's got a ton of information he's going to give to you. So just a few things I do want to talk about, though, is PAL bill, because that's going to have an impact on your budget this year. Give you a brief update on our fleet services, and then follow up with what Laura was talking about in our staffing situation. So real briefly, PAL bill is funds that we get from the state of North Carolina. The gasoline, when you put gas in your car, the gasoline tax, and also vehicle registration fees all go to the state, and then the state turns around and gives us money back. The amount of money that we get is based on 75% based on population, and 25% based on the number of road miles that we maintain. So this past year, you can see this is a graph that kind of shows you the trend of the PAL bill funds from the town. There's a total pot of about $154 million. Our piece of that pie is about 1.7, a little over 1.7 million. You can see how that trends. it increases, a little bit every year. Some years it doesn't. You can see the, you know, several years there we had a dip. But it's increasing, we would expect it to, because of course our population's going up. As Brian told you, the number of road miles that we maintain continues to go up. We've got about 241 miles, a little over 241 miles that we maintain. Stephen just hit me with a pretty good statistic a minute ago. In 15 years ago, in the last 15 years, we've added 100 miles. So we're at 241 now. 100 of those have come in the last 15 years. When I started 18 years ago, we were in the 130s. So since I've been here, we've added about 110 miles of streets that we maintain. So it goes up, but it's not going up near what it should to actually maintain our roads, and I'll show you that. So, I know Commissioner Walsh, but some of you guys maybe have seen this kind of exercise done before. But if we take the cost to mill, patch, and resurface 1 mile of street, and this is, you know, all streets are different widths and different, you know, so there's different components. But this is, you know, just generally speaking, it's about $50,000 to mill off the old asphalt. About $45,000 to patch 10% of the area. So if you ride down the road, the worst places that you generally see, we'll do a patch. We'll dig down deeper and put additional asphalt in. So you're about $45,000 there. And then to put 2 inches of brand new asphalt on it is about $175,000 for a total of $270,000. So carrying that exercise farther, 270,000 times 241.52 miles of streets is what to date we maintain. That's 65,210,000, a little over. If we spent 85% of our 1.736 million that we get every year from the PAL bill fund, and 85% because we still have to do the street signage, we still have to do traffic control. There are other things that the PAL bill is intended to cover, you know, components of street maintenance, other than whole street resurfacing. So if I say 85% of that, 1.7 million, your streets are gonna get resurfaced every 44 years. Asphalt, generally, we're seeing is lasting 20 to 25 at most, and that's you know, your higher volume streets with more truck traffic, more, you know, just more vehicular traffic. Those may last 15 years, where a dead-end cul-de-sac street that only has, you know, 10 or 15 cars a day on it, it might last 25. So on average, roughly 20 years is what we're seeing out of our asphalt. So what this is doing is saying that, you know, our PAL bill funds just aren't going to keep up. So that's, I don't think your citizens would be happy with a 44-year asphalt replacement schedule. Stephen and I were also just talking. So we're adding streets at a rate of 8 to 10 per year, 8 to 10 miles per year or more. That was based on what we currently have. Our resurfacing contract is generally 5 to 8 miles. So we're getting even far. We're taking on more than I'm resurfacing. So we're only getting into a bigger deficit, if that makes sense. So this year, for the first time ever, I think that we're going to ask the manager to recommend putting sidewalk maintenance, pulling it, which has generally been a PAL bill expense, to move that to the general fund. It was costing approximately $800,000 a year is what we're spending to maintain the sidewalks. We talked about the trip and fall claims that are coming in, and our risk management is having to is taking time to look at. The tripping hazards are crazy, and again, about $800,000 a year. I just demonstrated that we really need to be tackling the street resurfacing, and PAL bill is Yeah, I'm basically spending all our Powell bill distribution to resurface streets. So that's why we're gonna propose that the sidewalk maintenance, be funded in the general fund. Powell bill funds are being rapidly, depleted, so that's where we're at. Any questions on that before I move on?
Can I jump in a little bit about Powell bill?
Please.
We're not here to balance the state's budget, but when he talks to you about the source of funds for Powell bill for us is the gas tax, think about how people are using more electric cars. During COVID, when people weren't commuting, there were less gas sales. So the state's got a smaller pot to distribute. So that's why he's fussing, oh my gosh, I'm worried that I'm not gonna get enough Powell bill to maintain the streets. The state has suggested for some time that they might consider a mileage when you get your annual inspection. They might consider a mileage fee because they're not recouping any funds to support roads from electric vehicles. Just keep it in mind, it's a thing. But as the state has less money to give, the only way we're getting more money is additional citizens, which is why we fuss about whether or not that population figure is correct. And we worked really hard at the annual reporting to the state about what our miles have changed, because if that's what their basis is, we gotta make sure we get that right, because 1.7 million, almost 1.8 now, that's important to our budget. That's close to a penny.
But most of your money in the Powell bill, Kevin may have talked about this, I was texting there for a second. Most of your money on the Powell bill, where it works, is based on per capita. So it ranges from $25 to $30 per capita. It changes every year. The road mileage you take over is maybe $1,500 a mile. So if I take over a 1 mile road, say 10 miles of road, just for that section, you're gonna get times $1,500. Imagine paving a mile of road, $1,500 to fill a couple potholes. So it's more about population. So that's how you get in the Powell bill funds is based on population and road miles. The majority of the money comes per capita.
And so the state demographer's office sends out an estimate every year of what they think our population is. So there's an animated conversation about how we feel about the accuracy of that number. It's kind of fun viewing
Because
that.
it affects a lot of revenues, different revenues that come in. So with the point I will just stop with Kevin nailed home, we're gonna have to transition to probably start to take general fund dollars to start knocking a dent in this. It's just, we have no choice.
I was just gonna say that, Kevin, I mean, moving $800,000 of sidewalk projects out of the local fund, we're going up from 44 years down to 43 years, 10 months.
It's
I mean,
not, I would say we're still at 44 years. It's just now we can maintain sidewalks and resurface streets. Yeah, I don't think it's really gaining us anything other than safer sidewalks.
And it may be something, like I said, we haven't had a big discussion on this, but I think we're gonna try to see if we can move the needle. But what some towns have done, and I'm not saying we're gonna do this now, but I have seen some towns do, is a bond to knock a dent in some of that stuff. So $10 million, I'm making some number, $10 million, we're gonna set aside to resurface streets and knock out a bunch of sidewalks. I've seen that done. We haven't done that here, and I haven't seen much of that in this North American area, but larger towns I've seen do that, and that may be something we need to start thinking about, because that impacts everyone.
Are there any federal dollars that can help us with any of this?
So we go after grants and stuff. Just for instance, you're here, Bobby, and different ones talk about sometime just a small CDBG, the whole project in Huntington Green, which I think, if I remember numbers, like $4.6 million. Obviously, we continue to get it, federal grants for that to knock out as much as possible, but we look at, you may hear us talk about a RAISE grant later on, which is maybe a $6 million or so grant that gets at some of these trails and different things, and even greenways, et cetera. So you hear a lot about that, but absolutely, we go after any and every dollar we can.
So the federal dollars are generally about new projects as opposed to maintenance.
Typically, yes.
Typically.
And not to belabor the point, but another way to look at it is I said in the last 15 years we've added 100 miles of streets, and our pavements are lasting about 20 years. So what that tells you is, what it tells me, and it causes me not to be able to sleep at night, is there's a a big maintenance bubble in the garden hose coming toward the end. I mean, you know, the majority of our streets are relatively new, maybe compared to some of the other older towns in North Carolina. Winston-Salem, for example, City of Concord, a lot of those places pay for street maintenance, the majority of it out of their general fund money, because they've got older streets that are costing a lot more to maintain. Huntersville's getting there. We've been pretty fortunate, and we've been trying to put money back all these years because we knew that there was a big bubble of maintenance coming as these streets, they were all built at about the same time. They're all gonna get old and need maintenance at about the same time. So we see that maintenance bubble coming down the garden hose, and it's all at one time it's gonna hit. So that's another reason to.
How do I know, you know, my street's cracking and Jackie's is a little better? How do you determine when you're gonna pave a street and all that good stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. About every 3 years, we commission a third party to come in, a third party consultant group to come in and evaluate. They evaluate every street segment. So not only every street, but every street segment from intersection to intersection in town on our entire system. And they rate it from a 0 being basically a gravel road to 100 being brand new asphalt. Generally speaking, we take that data and every year we compile our resurfacing contracts starting at the zeros and getting as far up as we can go. Occasionally, if I'm doing, say, one road over here is a 15, it's terrible, and the next road over beside it is say a 50, and all I'm gonna go is 40, you know, a score of 40 on this package, I go ahead and knock out that 50 because it just makes sense. We're right there, the crews are there, there's economy of scale to go ahead and do it while we're there. But so there is some engineering judgment on there too. If one road is a 20 but 10 cars a day use it, and I've got a road over here that's a 25 but it's got 20,000 vehicles a day on it, I'm gonna focus my efforts on the higher volume. So there is a little piece of good logic and judgment in there, but primarily we use the numeric scale that a third party that doesn't live in Huntersville, they don't necessarily know Huntersville all that well, but you know, so there's no politics involved. It's based on the worst gets the attention. Okay. Fleet services update. July 1st, budget period, this current fiscal year we're in, the town board approved for the Public Works Department to add fleet services into the things that we're responsible for. I think it was a blessing and a curse all at the same time. Since that July 1st, we hit the ground running. We were able, super fortunate to be able to hire two full-time positions to work in the fleet shop. We have a fleet superintendent as well as a fleet technician. We also got busy upfitting an existing building that we had over on our Siegel facility to be our shop. That was pretty easy to do. It already had the roll-up doors. We already had one lift. We did add a second lift, but we had to buy equipment. We bought some tire equipment and various mechanic equipment. And we're proud to say we were able to open the door to the first town customers on October 8th of this year. Of course, the police department, Chief Graham's our biggest customer. With all the fleet that he has to keep up. And since October 8th, as of this past week, we've done our shop did 226 work orders. Now I'll say this, like Brian said, I'm gonna put a little asterisk on that. A work order could be somebody came in and needed windshield wipers replaced, or a work order could be they needed tires, brakes, a new battery, and an oil change and filter change and cabin filter and the whole nine. So a work order, we're constantly tweaking, you know, like I say, we're new to the business, so we're constantly tweaking how we're gonna keep our records. And I will say that our guys are, what's my name slide here? Yeah, there we go. you know, we hit a home run with the folks that we brought on. Our original envision was we were gonna do tires and oil changes, and routine maintenance, light bulbs, windshield wipers, you know, just routine stuff. Anything that was major in our mind, transmissions or, you know, major motor work, we were gonna send off, still outsource that. We were able to, have been able to achieve greater things. We've already done a couple transmissions, in addition to the, you know, keeping up with the routine maintenance. And there is currently a crate engine sitting up there. We're gonna do a full engine swap on one of the police cruisers. So, we're being able so far to achieve at a higher standard than we even imagined we would be.
Can I have a point of clarification on the town customers? What does that actually mean? Is that like available to anybody who lives in town, or?
No.
Just, okay.
The town of Huntersville fleet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
we kind of coined the phrase, our customers, like the police department is a customer of ours, the Parks and Rec department is, you know, basically anybody who has a town vehicle is a customer of.
Okay.
They turned me away. They wouldn't let me
When do
take
we
my
get our
personal
town
car
vehicles?
there.
How many vehicles is that?
So there's, the current fleets, I think that.
120.
Yeah, I think there's a little over 200 vehicles total, and that doesn't count construction equipment.
Okay.
So the excavators and the skid steers and the street and the, you know, tractors for Parks and Rec, those aren't included. But I think there's a little over 200 tagged vehicles that the town owns and now maintains. So so far we've assisted all departments. I don't think we've had to turn away anybody. Again, the only thing that we've had to outsource is alignments and the North Carolina inspections, and that's, you know, we'll evaluate that as we go, but as of right now, to buy the equipment, the alignment equipment, and the North Carolina inspection computer that, you know, that has a direct line to Raleigh, those are expensive, big ticket items that you can still get done cheaply at shops around us. So for now, we're still outsourcing those. But we're able to handle everything else. We're establishing accounts at local parts vendors, dealerships, the O'Reillys, the Advanced Autos, those places, so we can get greater savings on parts. I kind of get on sometimes our fleet superintendent, because he's pretty picky about his parts, and he calls and he really negotiates with these guys, and he'll hang up the phone and call the next guy, and hang up the phone and call the next, like he's shopping parts. So he's trying to get us the best deal we can, but still get quality parts. And we talked about this, and I don't think there's really a way to measure it. We can measure the savings to the town based on what we were paying, you know, fleet or the mechanic shop rates, labor rates, and mark up on parts. But I don't know that we will ever be able to quantify the health of the fleet. What we were finding, the first vehicles that were coming in had been, I don't want to say neglected, but they had been going to the outside shops. But if you go to an outside shop and say, hey, I need a battery, they're going to go out there and they're going to slap a battery in it and then send you on your way. But our guys are doing a full PM almost every time you come in. So they're looking at you know, looking at your brakes and your tires and your oil and all that stuff every time you come in. So I think that our vehicles are going to be able to, we're going to get greater longevity and better wear out of our vehicles, because I feel like that the care that we're giving them is, you know, us being in control of that care. And again, I don't think you'll ever be able to quantify that, but just knowing that it's a safe, you know, the officers are safer, you know, the tires we're putting on, we know what kind of tires we're putting on, and all that kind of thing. So
PM is preventive maintenance for those folks. Preventive maintenance. Right?
Yes, PM.
For
yes,
those folks that don't,
yes.
in the
Yep.
cyber sphere, that don't know what that means.
Yep. Any questions on the fleet shop? All right. So last topic I wanted to hit on briefly, and Laura keyed this up perfectly. You know, we continue to have challenges, and until I saw Laura's graph, I didn't know that we were the worst in town. But Barry usually is, but he's hit a home run this year. So I guess I'll take the award for being the worst, but there's, as Laura mentioned, we currently have 4 vacancies. Hopefully I'll have a guy starting Monday, that'll take care of one of the equipment operator positions, but I'll still have a crew leader and 2 equipment operators open. So we've been, I've got 16 people in my operations staff that, you know, are actually patching the potholes and all that kind of thing. So I put that we haven't been fully staffed in over 4 years. I don't even know when the last time we were fully staffed, but I know for the past over 4 years we have not been. So several years ago, the board was generous enough to give us 4 positions, a dedicated concrete crew, because sidewalk expenses were so great. We demonstrated that we could bring on an entire crew and save money. We haven't had that crew since those positions were approved. So, yeah, I would love to stand up here and tell you that I want more people and I need more people, but I can't fill the positions I have. So, also to Laura's point, 9 of our 12 current employees have less than 5 years of service. So we've only got 3 folks in the whole operations division that have been here longer than 5 years. And you know, of course, our hope is the pay study that's currently underway will kind of adjust the ranges and make those jobs more appealing to folks. The CDL, I think, is a big holdup. You know, for those of you who don't know, CDL used to you could just go to the driver's license office and pass a couple tests and they'd give you a CDL. But now they require extensive training, and you have to go into the driver's license office with basically a certificate saying you've completed all this training. And you know, as an individual, it's hard to get that training. So we are currently, since right now our technician level, which is our entry level folks, we're working on getting certified in-house to provide that training necessary to be able to get these folks their CDL and hopefully promote through our ranks. It's a pretty heavy lift to get that certification from the DMV, but it includes, you know, a driving course and you know, all kinds of technical book, you know, kind of classroom setting training, and we're looking to bring that in-house so that we can train our own folks to get their CDLs. And then, you know, nationwide there's a truck driver shortage. So when somebody does get that CDL, are we just training them to leave us? So we have to look at those kind of things too. But we are trying to get it where folks can move up through our ranks.
And to piggyback on what Kevin said, I know he said obviously we were trying to get a concrete crew. We contract out. We still contract out to do a lot of concrete work and even, you know, road work too. If we're not just putting it off sideline because we don't have people. We've always contracted out, but we're trying to bring some of that in-house too to do more. So it's not that it's not getting done. It's just being done a different way.
Where do people tend to go for their CDL training?
There's the Community College Central Piedmont has a program. I think there's several truck driving schools around the Charlotte area where people can go. But it's like 6 weeks. Yeah.
I
think
at least 6 weeks.
Yeah. So if you just signed up to go, you know, it's gonna be 6 weeks before you get the certification that you need, and that includes classroom time and driving. So, and we sent a couple guys. We sent them to school, but you know, we're without that employee for a couple months basically while they're getting that training. Part of the in-house program is a lot of it can be on the job training. So it's a little more beneficial to us to do that, and the cost of it the cost of that schooling has increased due to the demand, the current demand to take those programs fill up so quickly that now they can charge an arm and a leg to train your folks.
Are there partnership opportunities with like CPCC or to help?
We've kind of tossed around the idea to Piedmont, and they pretty much said, yeah, just come down here and take our class, was kind of the answer they gave us. What we are working with is some of the area municipalities around that also have the same challenges that we have. Charlotte, the city of Charlotte, actually at their Shopton Road facility, they've got the driving course set up. So we're in negotiations with the city of Charlotte to see if we can, have some of that course, take them down to the course for a couple hours, every week or something to be able to drive the course and use that as a resource as well. Because it's a, like I say, I'm in a kind of an email group with probably 12 or 14 area public works directors from, Harrisburg, and then all of Mecklenburg County, and then Harrisburg, Stallings, and everybody. That's always the hot topic is CDL drivers. Some of those people are even getting rid of all their CDL trucks, which would really put the handcuffs on us to get rid of those vehicles. But that's what they're having to do because they can't get the drivers. Any other questions? I think the next slide talks about engineering. So I'll be here all day. Thanks again for letting me talk to you. And here's Stephen.
So I gotta hold it up here? Gotcha. All right. Right for my hand not to get tired. Got a lot of information. Say Kevin had the first 10 slides. I've got the next 100. You laugh, but I do. So I don't know when. You just let me know when you want to take a break. In all this, it's a lot of information. I'll just say there's some kind of break points within this, but just let me know. And again, like Kevin's, want this to be interactive. I could get up here and talk all day and talk for hours and talk for the rest of the whole retreat if you want me to, but I want to give you the information that you want to have.
Catherine, do we know what time lunch is? We got Steve until at least lunch, and then he'll come back after lunch. So we'll just go till we need a break.
I'll go double check with lunch.
Yep.
Well, probably depending on if we can get to DOT projects, I don't know if we can get that far. Great, if we do, if not, no big deal.
All right, so engineering, really going to talk to you about projects and projects and projects. Kevin alluded to, we work a lot with Public Works. Engineering and Public Works used to be one department. We're two separate now, but we work together so much. It's on paper separate, but we're really still all together and work a whole lot with planning, police. Really touch a lot of different, or work with a lot of different departments. Today, just really want to focus on projects. There are other things besides projects that the engineering department works on and does and has a lot of time in. I've got them listed up here. I kind of mentioned traffic calming, land development plan review. We have 3 folks that their primary role is reviewing land development plans. Or I talked about vacancies earlier. We have one of those people out. That's a third of that group. So we do have outside consultants that help us for when those peaks and valleys happen, definitely during the peaks, or when we have staff out. But reviewed land development plans, reviewed traffic studies, traffic calming, new signage, and I'll talk to you about ADA sidewalk compliance, and then also DOT projects in town too. Kevin mentioned to you earlier, the town has about 240 miles of roads that the town maintains. The state has about 120 miles of roads that it maintains in town. So you've got about 360 miles of streets in town. When Kevin talks to you about adding a mile of street, you're probably adding 2 miles of sidewalk because there's sidewalk on both sides of the street. So that number can really go up quickly. So topics I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to talk about ADA sidewalk data collection, and then really just talk about projects. So, one up here is not changing, but so sidewalk data. Kevin talks to you about sidewalk maintenance. I think a lot of the sidewalk maintenance that's being done now is because there's a panel that's broken, tree roots have raised it up, utility companies have come in and done something and haven't fixed it all the way. That's a lot of what the sidewalk maintenance is. But we also have a responsibility to maintain the sidewalk for ADA compliance. Laura asked earlier, we have not quite 300 miles of sidewalk. That number's constantly changing. You may not add street miles, but you may be adding sidewalk mileage. There may be a commercial development along State Road in town. No new streets, but you're adding more sidewalk, and those occur much more frequently. We're trying to collect the data on all of that. Kevin talks about hiring an outside consultant to come in and look at the streets, do that every 3 years. We actually have a position, a technician position, that was funded the other year, and we're collecting that data in-house. So far, we've collected, over the past several years, we've looked at about half that sidewalk in town. This involves somebody going out and literally walking the sidewalk. So it's not something you just drive with the car and get it done. What we found on the sidewalk is about a quarter of that sidewalk that we've surveyed has been deficient in one of the criteria to meet the ADA standards. And so that's around 34 miles. So we're about halfway done. About a quarter of what we've done is deficient. So if you said, hey, we may need to, let's go address that. You know, how much would it cost? Here's a ballpark cost estimate on what that is. Sometimes that could just be grinding down a corner of the sidewalk that's been raised. Other times, it's full replacement. That's digging out what you have, hauling it off, pouring new concrete, forming it, finishing it. So we've taken just a ballpark number of $25 per linear foot to get this number. Again, do we know exactly what that's going to cost? No, but we're trying to get you in the right ballpark of what that's going to cost.
So assuming those numbers hold, you're talking about almost 20 million for the whole.
Well, it'd be about 9 million. So if we surveyed half, this is what we think it could cost to fix the deficient part on the half that we have surveyed.
Okay.
So when we survey the other half, if it's about as bad as what we've been seeing so far, hopefully it's better, but don't know. Then it could be another 4.5. Again, this is just the sidewalk part to meet ADA compliance.
Stephen, can I sidebar a second? So,
Sure.
The Americans with Disability Act is an old act. There's nothing new about it. But 2019, 2020, in our normal communications with DOT began to ask questions if we happen to have been talking to them about a grant or in general. How are you complying with ADA? Who's your ADA compliance coordinator? Where's your transition plan? We've been asked those questions, so we had to play a little bit of catch up to document the fact that we're complying with the law. And so our ADA transition plan was adopted by the board, if memory serves, 2021. Had to have a public meeting, didn't generate a ton of interest. It was during COVID, but we have complied with the law and it's on our website. And that's a transition plan that suggests once we surveyed something, we have an obligation to go back and take a look at it and fix that. And so this was not just about sidewalks. Think about our buildings, and is the handle in the correct place, and do our doors open with the correct speed? And so many of those items that were simple to correct have been done. Sidewalks is a recurring challenge. Thank you, sir.
And as long as we're making effort, I'm using general terms, to go out there and fix those as we see them, then we're fine. I mean, ultimately, but if we know about them and we never do anything about them, that's a no-no.
And this is something that's, thank you for the sidebar, this is something that's ongoing. This is not you go fix it, yes, this is a one-time fix list. It's just like streets. You could go out and fix all of this stuff in 5 years, it could all be bad again. It's constant. You got to keep going out and assessing what you have, and then constantly try to keep up.
And we'll continue to look at things like how do you maybe stop this from happening? Some things you may not be able to, but street trees. What kind of trees? Whatever trees we had 30 years ago may have been the wrong trees. So and Brian and them are looking at that and working with Kevin and Stephen to figure out how can we make sure these, or at least chip away at these things not happening in the future.
Yeah, how can we lessen the impact? That's what we're trying to do is lessen that. Try to change the trend. If the trend is we're adding more and it keeps getting worse and we're going this, What can we do to change that trend to lessen how much is going bad? All right, so I talked about sidewalk. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
How are you prioritizing which areas get fixed first
Well,
in terms of the ADA?
let's say
Does that fall under what
Yeah, so
we're talking about too?
So how I think about engineering public works, to break it, we handle the design, the plans, the permit, the new stuff. Once something's broken, so we identify the problem, help figure out the solution. Public works fixes.
Okay.
But,
They fix it. So if you got fix it questions.
so if it's here, yeah, I'm being simplistic, but the worst ones we're trying to knock out first and get down to the ones, but it literally could change. You could go see it one night and go back a different day and be here to there because of moisture, roots, all sorts of things you could literally change overnight.
And
Yeah.
Kevin, we don't have a ton of sidewalk inspectors, so we rely on reported conditions frequently from the public.
That's correct. Yeah,
And so if somebody reports, as Anthony says, a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch change in the sidewalk, that might not get some immediate attention, but 2 inches gonna get some attention.
That's right, yeah, we're mostly reactive to complaint driven.
So some of the stuff that we've surveyed may have already been fixed. Just because another issue arose and it was out there and it got fixed. So talk about sidewalks. That's not the only component. There's sidewalk ramps. So that's when you go across the street and you see it's got all the bumps and the truncated domes. That's the ramp part of it. So I talked just about sidewalk before. Now there's ramps. We hired a consultant several years ago to take a look at the majority of them. Since then, we've added more streets, more ramps, but what we found is 1/3 of the ramps in town were deficient. And so Public Works has actually been chipping away as part of the resurfacing contract. They've been adding in, replacing sidewalk ramps as part of that resurfacing. So those ramps have been getting replaced. I want to say 100 or more have been replaced in the past just 2 years alone. If you looked at the slide that I have up here from last year, you'll see that cost number, it hasn't changed. The price of everything continues to go up. So we're chewing away at what's bad. We're not really making a dent on what we think it's gonna cost because we're just making slow progress on that. We're still fixing stuff, but cost continues to go up on that. We're also, to try to piggyback on what was mentioned earlier, we're now inspecting those much more thoroughly before streets are accepted. 20 years ago, I'm not sure how thoroughly all that was, data was collected. Now, as part of the inspection process, before the streets are taken over, all that stuff is checked. So at least it's right when we take it over. What may happen 5 years after that, that's on us to fix. But making sure when we get them at the start, it's right and it's in.
And you have to remember, years ago, there's no such things as these, I'm gonna call them mats, with the bubble maps, I'll call them. They didn't put those, they didn't install those. So things have changed and technology has changed, and how they installed them, much different.
All right. Any questions on ADA sidewalk? No? Okay. All right. We'll jump into projects. First, want to talk about projects we've completed, or I'll say mostly are complete. We've got a handful of them. Where are those projects?
Stephen, can you I know you got a slide somewhere, but maybe before you get into projects, I know it's somewhere, how do you get to a project, or how do we even get going on a project? How does it work? Is that after this?
Yeah, I've got
Okay.
that in here. We'll definitely get to that. So just talking about some recent projects. These are projects that are complete, or as I said, pretty much complete. Where are they in town? They're kind of more in the central area here. So the first project got up here is US 21 at North Downs. Town partnered with NCDOT. We're made aware of an issue with some traffic out there. Partnered with DOT to install, I'll call it a temporary traffic signal. It looks like a regular traffic signal. It acts like a traffic signal. But when, as you'll see later on, the state has a project to widen US 21. This intersection is not going to look like this when that project comes through. So this signal is only up and going to work until that project comes through. but this is one that's been recently completed. All right, next project we've got is Patterson Extension. So this is a project to extend Patterson Road from where it stopped up into the Huntersville Business Park. That gives the business park another way in and out, gives it more connectivity, more choices. It also provided some redundancy for Charlotte Water. They extended a water line up the road. That provided some redundancy, in the business park. You think about redundancy where, okay, there's a break in a line or there's a crash at an intersection, something closes. We need another way to get in and out. Well, this helped provide that redundancy into the business park. Next project, Hambright at Stony Brook. Probably don't know what RFB. I'm going to probably hit you with a lot of acronyms today. If I hit you with an acronym that you don't know, just please ask. Rectangular rapid flashing beacon is what RFB. Basically, it's an enhanced pedestrian crossing. So when you walk up and you press the button to cross the street, I want to cross the street. There's a button there to activate this thing. This is dark unless you touch it. When you hit the button, it rapidly flashes that yellow to get your attention. Hey, there's somebody crossing the street. That's the point of it. Added a crossing here from the Stony Brook subdivision on Hambright Road to get you across to the middle school, the elementary school, the high school. Instead of walking down to the intersection at 115, crossing there, walking all the way back, notice there's probably some people crossing up here, so let's make it safer for them to cross. So
we will
added
talk
that
about
and did a
the
lot
high
of the work
school
in-house.
later. I was just saying, we will talk about the high school later.
Yes, yep.
Stephen.
And we've got some more of those.
Stephen, since we're on Hambright Road, on Hambright and 21, they're building some apartments there. They just broke ground?
They will be as part of Town 1.
Okay.
At Hambright, no, I'm sorry, yeah, no, that's a different one, different development.
Statesville Road mixed use.
Yeah, Statesville mixed use, yeah, there's several of them over there.
Okay. Have you looked at, if you're coming down Hambright, you want to make a left on the 21 right by the animal hospital?
Yes.
It's very difficult to make a left turn. We're bringing more traffic into that area. But if you want to make a left turn and go to the fitness center, for example, or to the recycling or land place, have we looked at putting a turn signal there?
You mean a separate phase in the traffic signal so I'm gonna take what you say and put it more in my terms, but basically an arrow light that gives you right away where everybody stops.
Yes, so we'll sit there for quite some time trying to make that turn because individuals coming from that direction going towards Batesville Road, they're gonna keep straight through, but trying to make that left turn is a nightmare.
Sure, we can ask the state. If you have traffic signal questions, we can definitely take those in and try to answer them. The state maintains all the traffic signals in town.
Gotcha.
So if a traffic signal goes out and you send it to us, you say that's great. We just turn around and pass it all to the state because they maintain them all.
Excellent.
There's actually one signal in town that is on Town Main Street. That's Branson at Stonetown, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. That's the only signal in town that's actually on town streets, but we contracted with the state to maintain because it'd be pretty expensive to have staff and the equipment to do that in-house. Yes, did you have questions on other potential projects? I'll say that's later on in my presentation, but if there are issues or things going on, please let us know and we can try to address it.
I had a question while we're talking about signals. Do we know how those are, like, years ago I was I had a client that worked in a room that like monitored all the signals.
Traffic management center.
Okay, so I don't know any of that, what any of that means, but so is that how we maintain them? Do we track like timing and the traffic on each side and determine?
Yeah, so
we don't. Yes.
So the short answer is we don't maintain any of those.
Right.
We don't have a traffic management center. The state maintains them all. They don't have a traffic management center.
Okay.
So Charlotte does. Charlotte has one. It's joint with police, I believe. I'm looking over at Barry, but they have folks that are in there all the time, and they look at that and manage that, and that'd be great. That'd be nice.
We don't.
We don't have any of that.
And they don't. The people that actually manage it don't. The town or the state doesn't either.
No, they don't. The signals are actually maintained. their maintenance office is in Albemarle. So when you call in and say, hey, there's a problem right here, right now, they're coming from Albemarle to come out. That's the closest office. That's where that stuff's maintained. It's not instant, okay? So if you say, hey, this needs to be fixed in 10 minutes, that's great. They're still getting in their truck an hour and a half way.
Wow, okay, thank you.
Just to manage some expectations.
Yeah.
Great questions. I like it. So Main Street, this is a project many years in the making. Some of those other projects we were talking about came up pretty recently. We were able to address quickly. Main Street, that's a project 15, 20 years in the making. So a long time. So added roundabouts, upgraded Main Street. A lot of water transmission was upgraded as well. $4 to $5 million worth of water transmission that was upgraded as part of that project. It's under the road. So we were tearing up the road. Perfect time to go in and maintain that. Why are you doing this project? Well, you have a problem. You have a traffic problem on 115. A solution is you could widen 115, make it 4 lanes. Is that what you want in your downtown? The answer was probably not. So let's come up with another solution. So the solution was, let's create a parallel road. Gives you some more capacity. You can have a choice. 115's backed up, take Main Street. Main Street's back up, take 115. Gives you more choice, more ways to be able to get around in the project. Cost to date, we're around 25 million so far. There's probably a few more million. It's pretty close. There's some last touch-up items and the traffic signal activation's been discussed, but we're getting very close to the end.
And the
Hey,
project may
Kevin,
be
just real
done.
quick, how close are we to doing the striping and putting that light on?
The signal is on.
Well, it's flashing, but.
No, it's
It's
active.
active.
Oh, it went active?
Yeah.
It went active this week.
You can go.
Oh, sweet.
And as these warm days come, they're trying to get the striping house. There's the thermoplastic that they're putting out, it's gotta be over 50 degrees and bone dry.
Okay, but the lights are on.
Yeah, but the light, the
Okay,
signal
cool.
is active, yes.
Stephen, that cost excludes, spoiler alert, Patty, you'll have on the next agenda a budget amendment to fund the aesthetics at the 2 roundabouts. So that's trees and the other shrubbery planting, and it includes some knee wall, that's probably not the right term. Kevin, that's what's in that proposal. So the
I
contract
heard there
to
was a
do those-
statue of Anthony going in there.
It is,
That's
but
just
it's
what I
about
heard.
3 inches tall.
So the contract to do that work, plus the budget amendment to do that, will be on the next agenda on the 19th.
And just one last thing on that. So we may finish a project and be done, and especially for a large project like that, and Steve is gonna talk about a bunch, but we still have 4 or 5 properties still to settle. I don't wanna get too far in the weeds on it, but they literally can settle long after the project is done. And so we're done, but there's still properties to settle with. Cause there were like 150 on this project we dealt with, and some wanna wait till the project's over. And they can, and there's statutes on, how that works, and so we won't get deep in the weeds there, but I just wanna let you know, there may be other things that could come back to the board, related to properties.
Sorry, go ahead. Was there someone else?
Go for it.
Okay. We get a lot of questions about the increase in roundabouts. Can you talk a little bit about why we are going with roundabouts in so many intersections these days?
Okay, I'll try to touch on that a little bit. We could probably spend the rest of today.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it's great. No, and let's say the questions and stuff, again, we can go off tangents and talk for days on all kinds of stuff. But so roundabouts have some benefits. They're a possible solution at an intersection. Some of the benefits are the crash severity. Crash severity is significantly reduced at roundabouts. You don't have people crossing over. You don't have people making lefts. Everybody's making a right, and you have glancing blows. You probably have rear end collisions there. Those crashes could be more frequent, but they're less severe. And so there's a big safety benefit to roundabouts when you can get the traffic volumes to work. It's not a silver bullet solution where, hey, every intersection, let's go roundabouts, because of the safety benefit. You have to find the right locations to make it work. You you ideally want traffic to kind of be balanced on multiple of the opposing approaches. Getting in the weeds a little bit here, but there's a big safety benefit. Also, power goes out, roundabouts, you don't have to worry about that. There's no signals right now. And then pedestrians, you're kind of more looking for that at roundabouts, so there can be some pedestrian benefits as long as you have them out there. You know, if there's no pedestrians out there for 10 years and all of a sudden you have a whole lot, you could have a little bit of an issue. But there's a safety benefit is the big thing, and also traffic signal too. You don't have to wait for the green or at the traffic signal. If it's free, you go. So those off-peak times, traffic keeps flowing.
But we analyze intersections. We don't just, Stephen doesn't just say, well, we just need to throw a roundabout there or a signal light. So we analyze intersections to determine what's the best fit, and we bring that back to the board. So Stephen, I know multiple cases, we analyze the signal light, we analyze the roundabout, we analyze all sorts of things and then make that decision. It's just not because Stephen likes it or I like it.
We want to look at the options and evaluate what's the best for that. You also have to look at not just the traffic benefits, but property impacts too. There's a lot of different factors that go into intersection improvement selection, as those projects get developed.
A quick follow-up on that, how does that impact our safety vehicles, or does it?
The ones they're putting in neighborhoods, you can drive over top of them, fire trucks and garbage trucks and things like that. We get a lot of complaints about people pull over and then going around the wrong way, but that has nothing to do with them. I agree with what he says. I don't dislike the roundabouts. We get a lot of complaints, but that's because people breaking the law. We go out there, we sit, no one does it, we leave. They pull up there instead of going around, they'll turn left. But they're designed for the larger trucks to go over top of them.
Yeah, and what he's talking about are mini circles. That's more of a traffic calming feature. These are roundabouts. You're not gonna, go over the middle of these. The mini circles in neighborhoods, those are meant as traffic calming. There's kind of mini traffic circles at a local intersection. These are more your major intersection roundabouts. These are designed, you see the kind of concrete in the middle, that's for large trucks. So cars stay on the asphalt, the trucks kind of use whatever they need to because they've got to make those big sweeping turns around those.
Okay.
But going back to we very rarely have crashes and stuff. But when we do, it's the middle of the night, someone's intoxicated, they go straight to the middle of it. It's just the way it is, but we very rarely have crashes around.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I personally love roundabouts, but I've also lived in places where they're much more common and they've been there for decades. And it'd be great if we could send a message to the DMV because I have a teenager learning to drive and she received, very little training on how to handle roundabouts. So the first time I was in the car with her, I was like, okay, he needs some lessons. And I feel that, being in an area where they're relatively new for our community, that might be some of the issues is people aren't familiar with using them. But my question, I had two things, and I want to make sure I understood the upgrade of the water transmission. Is that speaking about stormwater or existing?
Potable water.
Okay.
That's the stuff you drink.
And are there any updates on, because there's some issues with the crosswalk, and with after what Norfolk Southern came in and some design issues. Is there any update on what's happening with that?
So I'm gonna look at Kevin here a little bit. I know he's been a little more involved with it, but there's.
I was just gonna say the short version is obviously they reviewed the original plans, and at that time they approved the plans.
NCDOT.
NCDOT, and we have to work with the rail division, et cetera. But then after they're coming back and seeing the functionality, seeing and realize sometimes everything looks good on a piece of paper. After seeing the functionality, they said, well, maybe we may need to look at some changes. So I'll leave it to Kevin to pick up from there.
The latest update is the current design has you crossing the track and then like staging to then cross Main Street. So it's kind of where the pedestrian button is. They felt like there's not enough room between the kind of the railroad ditch and the intersection and the travel lane. It's kind of a very tight area to stage. So the latest solution, we had a meeting with the rail division and NCDOT and everybody out there this week. going to do is move the pedestrian signal west of the track. So when you'll kind of stage on the Church Street side of the railroad track, push the button there, and then when you get the walk signal, you actually cross the track and the intersection. So that was their hang up when they came to look at the geometry of the way those intersections and the railroad, the proximity to the railroad track. They were worried that if you're standing there waiting on the signal to turn and a train comes and the arms come down, then one of those arms could hit a pedestrian or something like that. So the change is that they're going to actually stage pedestrians closer to Church Street, and then when they get the green, when they get the little walking man symbol, they'll actually cross the track and the intersection all in one movement.
Where does the funding come from a mistake like that? Like when we got an approved and we move forward, we spend the money to do it, and then they come back and say, nope, who pays for the mistake?
We're currently having those discussions.
Okay.
Do you have an
Thank you.
idea of how much that's going to cost to fix?
You're probably talking $10,000 to $15,000. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot.
Yeah, they're saying a $30 million project. Say, hey, can we make this a little better? Let's spend $2,000. You're gonna say no? Let's wait. It's probably gonna be let's go ahead and get that done and get the thing open so people can use it.
And there may be some remaining grant dollars that we can use for that too.
I feel like knowing humans that they're gonna go to the middle anyway, and where the arm is, if the arm's, you know, because people are impatient, they're gonna do that anyway.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But there were a ton of federal or state dollars associated with this project, so Kevin said there may be that may be the way to get at that $10,000 or $15,000.
It's 11:54. Catherine, lunch is at noon.
You got what, one or two more to finish
I've got
up?
a few more
Okay.
on just projects we've completed.
All right, go for it.
Yeah, Anthony brought up, let's say on Main Street, there's more than $10 million of money that we got from state and federal folks for the project. Charlotte Water paid us 100%, so whatever the water upgrades, they're paying 100% of that cost. So that coming out even on that. All right, so just have a couple of quick photos, just before and after. You're driving on the road, you may not see it this way, but so this is at the Southern Roundabout. So you can see what it looked like before and looked like after. It's a pretty significant change. This is near the park where we were just talking about. Again, before and after. Pretty significant change. To me, the big one's at the northern end. Before there was nothing there. You had totally different street network.
And there will be leftover parcels that the town will own. At some point in time, when we clear this project, we will come back to the board and look at development opportunities or whatever. But we want to get this project cleaned and fully functional, and we'll come back and probably address those.
All right, I've got two more slides here, talk about existing projects. Ranson at Stumptown, so that was an intersection upgrade project. Lengthen some turn lanes, increase the storage capacity, added a lot of pedestrian enhancements, a sidewalk out here. There wasn't really much of any sidewalk at the intersection before. You had to kind of walk in the road or in somebody's front yard to get there. Now sidewalks connected to everything. Connects down to the small apartment building, connects to the neighborhood on Stumptown, and then down. Now it's connecting to the new neighborhoods that are out there. So that's that one. And then talk a little bit about resurfacing. Kevin was telling you about how many miles we're doing and where they are. Well, this is the resurfacing that happened last year. So it was about 6.4 miles. Again, they said around 5 to 7. Look at economies of scale. Following up a little bit on what Kevin was saying, you may say, well, I want this one street here in this one neighborhood, then I want to go one street in this next neighborhood, one street. They have to pick up the equipment and transport it, so that's going to cost money to do. If the equipment's already there and it's already doing stuff, you get some economies of scale with doing that, right, Kevin? So try to group things together to not just do one little street here and there, but that's what was resurfaced last year. And then next, talk about projects we have
I think we're ready to take a break and, ask questions and then probably stop right here because it's close to lunchtime.
Yeah.
Any questions anymore from Stephen right now? He's gonna come back and you're gonna get a lot of him today. Larry, I think that's